All right, gamers. Um, this is Story of Kratos series chapter 1, Epilogue. Per my brother's recommendation, I decided to change the format of how I label these going forward. Each game is going to be labeled as a chapter in chronological order, so that he was saying it would be better just to not have, 70 something episodes at the end, but more than anything, I think it's better to if anybody wants to watch a specific game, they can go on ahead and find that specific game with more ease. So that's why I will be limiting them as chapters going forward. So chapter 1 being Ascension, because it's the first game in chronological order. This is its epilogue. On the last episode, we finished the campaign, and on this episode, I'm going to be going through the multiplayer and the extras, which is, special features, bonus content. And, yeah. So I just spent the last hour and a freaking half battling through Sony's extremely outdated PS3 marketplace to get my credit card on there because I have to re-buy the multiplayer pass because in an update it did not recognize that I owned it anymore. That or it's system bound, but I'm pretty effing sure I was getting it to work on this system just a few months ago when my brother and I were playing it. But regardless, here I am after spending an hour and a half troubleshooting. I found a little loophole on Reddit where I had to put $15 in there to buy the $11 item. So now just $4 is lost in the Sony ether. But without further ado, let's get this thing going. That was just utterly ridiculous. Alrighty, so here's the multiplayer. Unfortunately, don't think I'm able to quite get the full intro because I technically already have an account. But this is basically the skivvy of it. Is you have 4 factions. You got Ares, and then the 3 big ones: Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. So to I can't remember how you cycle through that. Training, labors, champion, quick play, game mode. Maybe champion. Yeah, that first guy. So basically, from there you can customize your character fairly extensively. You got various weapons: swords, hammers, spears, and gauntlets. And there's like a bunch of them. A lot of them look real freaking cool. Some of them are class specific, so you only get some swords. These are all swords that, regardless of your class, I think you can have these ones. But then the Blade of Ares is Ares specific. That's Ares specific. Which is funny. Is actually I had a lot of these bonus ones at one point. Yeah, these are all anybody can use them. And then this was like a prestige mechanic where you can get the godly stuff if you prestige the game, which I don't think I ever did. But yeah, you got swords, you got hammers, which a lot of the weapons have chain attachments to them, so it's kind of like vibes off of the main campaign, which makes it just kind of more fun. That's actually a hammer from the second game, which we'll circle back to that when we get to it. But yeah, there's all kinds of goodies. Sphere of Destiny is also from the second game, even though it looks quite a bit differently in this one. And down to the gauntlets. So that each and that's all. So that's the third game, which we will definitely get back to that as well later on. Yeah, each class basically has different stats, basically. The Ares ones did the most damage, Hades was able to get health when they killed people, Poseidon had the most armor, and then Zeus's did the most magic damage. Basically mage builds. So it's just an insane amount. Like, some of them are pretty basic. You know, some of them are, you know, a little cooler than others, but obviously each one has their own stats, so if you're trying to go for builds, obviously depending on what you're going to use. But, like, most of these are not class specific. Only the ones that are labeled either Ares, Zeus, Poseidon, or Hades are, like, class specific. Most of them are just shit. So these two are the only two that are specific to the Ares, which is what my character is currently aligned to. And then I guess, yeah, then the Ares. Everything else is for all characters can use them. And yeah, the godly ones are just the prestige ones. But, yeah, that gives you a rough idea. I don't think I need to go through every single armor, but I guess I could, only because, again, most of them are not class specific, so I don't need to really do this, like, once. And you can change colors, too. Like, right now I have the blue trim on, but you can go through and customize, like, the blue parts that are currently in that bluish metallic color. I can change that color. And the tattoos you can change your colors, your character's skin color, all that stuff. It's just capes, basically. And then, of course, you gotta have the legs. So yeah, again, the beginning of the game, you went through that one cell, and then the character, basically, this character was, oh, God save me or whatever, and a beam of light basically made him disappear, which then activated, once you launch multiplayer for the first time, it activated a cutscene where you can then choose your allegiance and had a little tutorial, basically. Yeah, so from there you can go to abilities. There's all these different, like, you know, there's several different magics you can use, and items which are kind of like just relics almost. You can just, I guess they have relics. Two different, basically give you passive abilities and stuff as you do actions in the game. And then you have your appearance, where, yeah, you can change your skin tone. Like, I just had mine be a little tan, only because I thought it kind of made sense for being an Ares, all fire and stuff. But yeah, you can change it. I had lapis lazuli, which is, you know, more blue, but you can change it to all these different kind of colors. Just because my favorite color is blue, and then, yep, various different tattoos. I guess not various, but, you know, a few. And then to change the color of the tattoo as well. I had mine red for a while, but I don't know, I just thought it was kind of boring to be all red, because even though the main color was red already, so I thought I'd spice it up. But yeah, it's the Ares. From there you can do, which I actually had a Poseidon. I actually initially started the game off with a Poseidon character, but then I just kept getting dicked on, man, because like I said, the Ares characters just do so much more damage. So yeah, everything else is the exact same, minus the 2 or 3 class-specific ones. You have the Sword of Poseidon and then the Blade of Poseidon, which obviously that one just looks a lot cooler. But again, for Poseidon characters, you want to go for more resistance, but also that one does a bit more damage, it looks like. And then Hammer of Poseidon, which, yeah, obviously he's the god of the sea, so they're all sea themed. And yeah, the gauntlets are all the same. And then, yep, armor, same thing. They're all basically the same, so 2 of them. So for him, it's the Kraken, the battle armor, and then war armor. Yeah, I'm actually not even using the Poseidon one on this character. There's that one, the Kraken, and then the War. I think I went through and created characters for the other two, but I didn't really get into the multiplayer in this game personally. It is pretty dang fun, like honestly. It's just I'm not that good at I wouldn't say I'm not good at hack and slashes, but when you compare me to other people, I'm not as good as other people. So I usually got pretty dicked on. I did okay. I wasn't like terrible or anything, but I definitely wasn't like super good at the game. But I don't know. I found myself playing other multiplayer games over this one. So yeah, looks like Phobos is the other class-specific one for Hades, other than the war and battle. And yeah, the where was it? Right there, that helmet is kind of Hades' helmet for most of the games. So I mean, you know, my opinion, it's a little lame to have that as be it, but whatever. Hades, yeah, which is just the prestige one. They're all gold or silver and stuff. Obviously, I made this character all purple. I'm sure these other ones are better than what I have them equipped for. Just like I said, I didn't play as this character, so I didn't level them up enough to unlock that other stuff, even though it's not hard to get. So yeah, Thanatos looks like that is maybe... No, I think that's all. Get that. So yeah, the... Right back up here. Hades, Sword of Hades, and then the Blade of Hades. Which, yeah. I mean, obviously he's like the god of the underworld, so his stuff's gonna be looking pretty cool. I remember again, a lot of the Hades characters use mauls when playing the multiplayer, and I remember a lot of them are doing pretty dang good with them. Even the hammers, they have chains too, like. And yeah, gauntlets are all the same. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Zeus Allegiance was the least used one. I'm pretty sure. I feel like that was the one I just saw the least, at least as memory serves, but I obviously could be wrong. I'm not super sure. But that's kind of what I remember being the case. So yeah, that's the gist of the customization capabilities in regards to the multiplayer. I am gonna try and see if I can find a match, but I wouldn't doubt there's somebody playing this. Then again, when I played this one the last year with my brother, when we did quick play, when we tried to find specific game modes, we weren't really finding anything, but when we just hit the quick play, we were finding games. But we'll see. I'm not going to give this more than a couple minutes. So I can just do, the thing that my brother and I actually played the most was, there's like PvE mode where you played as your character and you did this like, it's like a gauntlet thing, kind of like the Bloody Palace from Devil May Cry, where as you killed dudes, it increased the timer, and then if you ran out of time, you lost, and then basically you had to go through these mini stages, and at the very end, there was a boss fight. And that's what we played the most, at least together. We can play that together locally, and then it was just fun. Honestly, it was real fun. I mean, it's a hack and slash, right? Hack slashes are fun. Oh, dang, I was kind of hoping to get at least one multiplayer match in, but like I said, I have no idea. The player base is probably virtually non-existent. Probably 15 people in the entire world playing this. Still. And the odds of them all being on a Tuesday afternoon. Yeah, I'll give it a couple minutes. But yeah, basically the labors, which are basically challenges you could do. Which you got like XP and rewards and stuff for doing that kind of stuff. And then stats, I guess it's just, yeah, career stats. So Ascension levels, I assume, are the prestige, kind of like what Call of Duty did. You can like re-level up and then get these tokens to get like the godly versions of weapons and armors. Favor just might be XP. I'm honestly not sure. I obviously got 60 games played. I've won to 21 of them. Shows you how good I was. Average favor per game. Overall win percentage is 35%. I never played Capture the Flag, I guess. Team Favor of the Gods, which is probably just Team Deathmatch. Match of Champions. Bout of Honor. Trial of Gods. Obviously, just Trial of the Gods, I think, might have been the one we were playing. I think we did more than 8. I wonder if Gold Wave was the PvE mode. I don't remember. Yeah, I got more kills and deaths, so that doesn't suck. But yeah, it was kind of cool. Was basically, oh, look at that, I got fucking people. Hell yeah, good shit. Awesome. That's pretty cool. It's gonna be funny to watch me get my shit kicked in. Oh, the game just lags out. Hopefully the game doesn't just lag out. So yeah, Favor of the Gods, I'm pretty sure, was kind of like the most, kind of like the standard game mode, if you will. I think it started as, it was kind of like a team-based thing where there was some sort of boss at the center of the map where like the enemies, the two teams were kind of like combating against each other to like work against the boss, and then whoever killed the boss at the end either won or got a huge XP bonus or something.
Walls of Troy. Team Favor of the Gods.
Well, I'm not seeing no centralized boss, so it would appear Favor of the Gods. Oh, capture altars, kill enemies, and open chests to earn favor. Okay, so never mind. I guess there's no... Whatever game mode that was the one I played the most, where it was like, I think it was teams of 2 or 3, and then... Yeah, it was kind of, it was a little more, it was more than just running around killing people. It was, no, I found it to be pretty fun. That was the one I played the most, but I just don't know what the hell it's called.
Trojans move toward victory.
Yeah, one slightly lazy thing about this is for the grab people, it's the same thing. So you just pull this like giant hook out of your ass to grab people with. I'm trying to get a better look at it. But so yeah, this was the first time we saw like kind of like the runic attacks from the newer games. Where you can see in the top left corner, L1 square and triangle is their special abilities. Well, that's on a recharge rate. Just like how it works in the newer games. Well, yeah, so it's like I can use the amulet to alter this bridge, killing people if they're on it and stuff. Kind of a neat little thing. Well, I'm not seeing a single freaking person. Everybody fucking quit the game. Are you serious? Whatever, dude.
Defeat.
Alright, we'll try that one more time. Because, obviously, if that's going to keep happening, then that's... can't show the game. So... we will see. That's a pretty big bummer nonetheless. Yeah, I got XP, dude. Alright, we'll try that again. Didn't take super long to get into a game, which is cool, but if everybody's gonna just leave the game when it starts, it's kind of lame. And I was wanting to like get in on this with my brother so we could play through the PvE mode together, but I guess when PlayStation updated how their subscriptions work, he lost access to the game without, you know, unless he wanted to spend like $80 or some dumb crap. So he said like no, basically, which obviously makes sense. I mean, I'll try one more time later, but let's get something going. Yeah, so this is basically where the game dumped you when you start the tutorial, where you can then choose your allegiance. Sparring. Let's try sparring. There we go. This will give you an idea. Oh yeah, so the red flash red means it's an unblockable attack. That's a parry. Wow, yeah, this guy's taking on pretty good. Yeah, so as you like dodge, it was pretty unique how they like this was unique. It was well thought out with some of the stuff, like as they dodge and you give them like certain like at the end of certain combos or air combos and stuff, you can that little halo will pop up just like in the single player where you can then grapple them.
This is your end.
So yeah, it's like special attacks. That's the square one. The air, all the weapons are on chains and stuff. So it's just very cool weapons. Like, so it's really nice to like if you're playing with people too. At the end of that combo, you know, if it didn't take so long to recover, I could have grappled them. So you know, if I was with a buddy, as I finished that, you can grapple them. It's really like thought out, honestly. Like they definitely put a certain level of effort into the multiplayer mode. That's like undebatable. It just unfortunately wasn't super well received by most of the fan base. Man, so I'll grab this map and see what that looks like. Oh, no, L2 is the orb thing. Never mind. So yeah, see, I gotta fuck off. The defensive thing. So there's the magic. Kaboop and then bop. Easy enough. Every time you dodge, the halo will pop up above your head, and people can grapple you as you dodge too. So if you get good at the game, it's pretty easy to just shit on people. You're just hyper paying attention all the time and quick to react. Well, it gives you a slight idea of the PvP experience. Yeah, there are some really cool executions. Like some of them utilize the weapons a little bit more, and yeah, they're pretty dope. Just like in traditional God of War fashion. So I'll try one more quick play. Give it a couple more minutes, and if I can't, then we'll probably just jet over to the extra features. Okay. I think that's good enough of an attempt. At least got an idea of it. Well, you don't get to play against any actual freaking people. But yeah, there you go. It was fun for what it was. Most people just didn't like it seems like. But it was really fun. My brother loved the shit out of it. He played that a lot. But yeah, let's go on ahead and get into this bonus content. All of which actually, I haven't seen any of this, so it'll be new for me too. So let's get to it. Plot points of the game, elements for God of War Ascension.
I'm Todd Pappy, Game Director, God of War Ascension. What you're about to see is a making of video that we've been shooting over about 2+ years. It gives you a good idea of the inception of an idea all the way through to the final product. Keep in mind that this is a work in progress. Enjoy.
Welcome back. I'm seeing a lot of fresh faces. Just kind of wanted to give you guys a high-level view of what I've been thinking. Basically, we've been trying to take God of War and really distill it down to an essence. God of War has always been a single-player game, so the mandate on this one is it is a multiplayer game.
I think the biggest challenge by far is transferring a purely single-player, well-developed, third iteration title into a network multiplayer world. It's shocking.
That's what's new, exciting, unknown, and where we want to make a mark in the industry.
It was absolutely terrifying to work on this technology without a safety rope. We didn't know if it was going to work. We bet the farm on it early. Frankly, if it didn't work, I probably wouldn't be here talking with you now.
I mean, it's heartbreaking, so we in the early stages, and you like sitting there, you're toiling at your computer day and night, like, yeah, this is gonna be great. And it is just like, it might not be great.
We've never done it before, so we don't know what we're doing.
See, that's the person who's good at multiplayer.
We've kind of gone from scratch to this, basically. Right now, what we have is the bare minimum, what we need, but at least we've got it in. Everything is kind of hanging together by sticky tape, really. It's so new to us, all this stuff. We're nowhere near bulletproof yet. Given how much scrutiny multiplayer goes under once normal people start playing it out in the real world, it's invaluable because we're making so many changes, we're iterating on it so much, we're trying to find out what makes God of War multiplayer fun.
All right. Whitney really is in first place right now. She has the most kills, and she's never played before. Believe it, Ariel.
The hit reactions over the network trump the circle reactions.
Yes.
And you want the circle reactions to take priority.
Circle reaction trumps everything.
Okay, I can fix that for you.
Okay.
Totally.
Cool.
I died off the spawn. So basically I spawned and then immediately fell off the pillar.
We completely rewrote the way that attack collisions
Yes, that
work.
circle
and we
icon
flipped
there.
From the old method over to the new method, and nobody noticed the difference. The reason why I'm so happy is because it's the very first step towards us hiding latency in the game.
That's a good sign. It's good that everyone didn't go, oh my god, it's horrible. So that's encouraging, although we know we've got a lot of work to do on that. It's a challenge every week, but considering where we were 3 months ago, it's a revelation.
Yeah, that circle icon's with the grab icons like in every other Greek game.
When a person plays it, they need to feel God of War. And so that's been the thing that is still ongoing right now.
I am excited for multiplayer. My day normally is comprised of meetings after meetings after meetings, but at night, from 5 to 6:30, I get to play multiplayer. I actually like building up rivalries with the other people I'm playing against and start hunting them down and trying to kill them or them over.
Ah, son of a...
I think a lot of the unique aspects come from the kills, and you can kill people in
I wonder why they
different
bleeped out the
ways.
curse words
You
in
can use
the
traps
Ventura
to kill
game.
them, you can sacrifice them, you can
I guess maybe they
hunt them
publish
down
this
and
elsewhere.
become their nemesis. That's one thing that players will see that's
More interested.
very God of War, and it's different to any other game, is the brutality we involve in multiplayer.
It's just some cool stuff you can do if you're good. Like, it's very fun and engaging. Like,
The first playtest, we're literally just looking for, can the player get from point A to point B and know where they're going?
I think that it'll be surprising for people to see and hopefully will meet and exceed people's expectations.
We're really excited because this is the first time anybody has seen God of War multiplayer. We've been working pretty hard on it. It's actually a really good time to start putting it in people's hands.
Playtests are always nerve-wracking. Day of playtest, I hate it. I pull out my hair. I get very frustrated, just because I expect it to go a certain way, and it never goes that way.
You're never happy, you're never ready for people to actually see it.
There's going to be quite a few surprises that keep us up at night, probably for a couple days afterwards.
We forgot to put the prompt for the cranks.
The thing that I'm kind of nervous about is people actually getting and understanding the concept right off the bat. Because we are doing something that's very different, and we're throwing a lot at you at once.
To see them enjoying those moments, it makes all that hard work worth it.
There you go.
I'm Todd Pappy, Game Director, God of War Ascension. What you're about to see is a making of video that we've been shooting over about 2+ years. It gives you a good idea of the inception of an idea all the way through to the final product. Keep in mind that this is a work in progress. Enjoy. Got our press announce coming up. It's all about spectacle. There's going to be plenty of smoke and mirrors, just making sure that what the press is seeing is exactly what we want them to see. We've got something unique on our hands. Nobody else has our combat system, yet alone the ability to do scale. Press announce is basically our stake in the ground and saying, look, this is what this game's going to look like.
The big reveal is like, hey, you know, this is what Sony Santa Monica's working on. If we're doing something a little bit different, normally we do single player. We're gonna actually wind up teasing the players by actually showing a multiplayer instead.
It will be very scripted and staged because the press will be watching one main screen. We'll all be live players actually demoing the game.
Choreographing 8 players is going to be a pain in the...
Everybody ready? All right, they're going.
Making sure that everybody's in their spot when they need to be and it doesn't look silly. There'll be tons and tons of rehearsals. Orbs are getting reset, man.
Everybody's split up. It's not like everybody's stuck in the same spot.
The actual art is really far along.
Hey, Jess.
Yeah?
We got to get shadows underneath the ropes.
As soon as we announce the title, people are going to be expecting something big. I think with this, though, I was just so harried to give them something. I didn't worry about it so much. So now I'm worrying about it in the aftermath. You know, he's done, he's in the game, and I'm like, ah.
As one of the artists, I always want the press or the public to go, wow, those graphics are awesome.
We've got a Titan in a level with 8 players, and hopefully people are looking at this going, this is awesome. They took God of War and they translated it to multiplayer, and this is their idea for what they're going to do in multiplayer. And I hope they see that and go, you know what, they didn't just stop. We pushed the envelope.
That's first impression. It's like dating. You know, it's just like, how many times have you gotten a second date after a bad first impression? You know, that's the rule.
How about your part of it? Are you ready to talk to the press?
No, not. I want to go through one more media training. I want to get a little bit more comfortable with it. But it's usually once I get my spiel down, then I'm a lot more comfortable. Right now, I'm nervous. We're at the lot in Hollywood doing our press event.
I don't really remember my first impression was when I saw the multiplayer reveal for this.
Tired. We're going to show off multiplayer today to the press, and hopefully everything goes well and they enjoy it.
I think it's harder when a game's been running for a long time for it to transform itself. Whether they can pull it off, I'm interested to see.
You know, there's a bunch of us talking about it right now and wondering what we're going to see. So, no, I think we're all excited to see what's going to go on in there.
Kratos is probably the #1 seller of our magazine, so it'll be good to have him back on our cover at some point.
Leveling up and progression, you know, over a long period of time.
Brutal combat, brutal kills. This is definitely new for me. Like, I'm not used to talking to press. I'm not a fan of being in front of the camera, but at the same time, I'm a fan of talking to other fans or trying to explain what's going on.
We're always under evolution, so yeah. Hi, everyone. It's great to have you. Thanks for coming from all around the world. A media event like this is really critical. This is an opportunity for the team to really come together for a big event and show all the hard work that's being put into the product.
I'm sure we can get questions about single player, and we're not talking about it today. And then with multiplayer, why the are you adding multiplayer to this awesome single player game? I think that's why we did this announce and really focused on the multiplayer, is so that will squash any of those questions, because we can say, look, that is why we did it.
So we worked really hard to make sure that this was live. We weren't going to screw around. We weren't going to show a video. There's actually guys playing back there. They all have a dev kit directly at their feet, a little tiny television. Originally, we were going to have 8 screens set up in the front, and then at some point we were realizing that that would take people's focus. They're going to be watching that guy and they're going to be watching that guy. Really, we wanted to have them be able to focus on one thing all at once as one cinematic presentation. So that's why we ended up having all the guys up in the back Todd really wanted to have the multiplayer slowly unfold. So we start with the half-face shot, but he's really in shadow. And then the guy steps into the light, puts on his helmet, and it's clearly not Kratos. So we start by unfolding, hey, you're playing somebody you're not used to playing in this God of War prequel. And then as you're fighting Cyclops, second guy jumps in. Wait a second, it's a co-op game. There's 2 players. And then when you go into the main arena, that's when we reveal that there's actually 8 guys fighting because there's already 6 guys waiting in the arena for you. That was important to us to be able to let people kind of slowly reveal that there was going to be more than just one person.
Excellent run through, guys. Excellent run through.
Yeah, I don't remember what my reaction was to multiplayer. I think it was probably, why are they adding multiplayer? But I don't think I remember being, like, mad about it. But, yeah.
Hi, I'm Todd Pappy, Game Director, God of War Ascension. What you're about to see is a making of video that we've been shooting over about 2+ years. It gives you a good idea of the inception of an idea all the way through to the final product. Keep in mind that this is a work in progress. Enjoy.
You are on one of 2 teams fighting over the chance to slaughter this giant Cyclops that we have nicknamed Megalops, a Mega Cyclops. And there's been some debate, it's Megalops, not Megaclops, because Megaclops sounds like a giant horsey.
Megaclops is a terrible misnomer. I'm gonna fight to the bitter end to change its name from Megaclops.
It's been in gestation for quite a while because it's kind of the sum total of a lot of the stuff that we've been messing around with in the multiplayer mode really for the last, I don't know, what's nearly 2 years.
We need to tighten in the multiplayer to capture the God of War essence and insert it into multiplayer. That's what we need. Some of the early sketches, this guy right here, this one is a more upright, barrel-chested, more intelligent Cyclops. With gigantic characters, it's always a good idea to find some way to suggest scale. His necklace is made out of human skulls. We moved on to the next step. I didn't really think about it, but he looks like a rock star up on the stage, like going, ah, and that's all Todd could see after I designed it. So I was like, So very close to that is this. One of the biggest challenges in designing Cyclops is to keep them from feeling cartoony. Seeing the white of the eye is what gives it that cartoony quality. I don't know why that is. So this is kind of like a dog eye. So it gives him more of an animalistic, evil quality, I hope. But also I wanted to draw your attention to something that stuck through even from the beginning. The necklace made of human skulls, but this time it literally is a manclass because I added human bodies. I wanted to give the players every hint possible that this thing is horrible. I'm really proud that we got that on the design.
Megaclops is actually Polyphemus, who appears in the Odyssey where Odysseus goes into the cave and they have to stab him in the eye. And that's how he's been incorporated into the multiplayer. This is the biggest character I've worked on, by far. Here's the full body of him. His lower half was not going to be incorporated. We didn't even build this because we were told that there was going to be a dust storm down there. And this is just kind of how things change around here. So now I had to go back and block in the legs. We're getting in and sculpting every dot and every pore because you get so close. His head and his shoulders and arms are at 11 million polys. We've had to sculpt each individual wrinkle and everything that happens on the hands. When I do start to color him, we can create masks from all of the depth, and then I can paint on top of that. The reds really pop, and then we can get some yellows on the surface of the skin, just make it feel a little more real. Oh, the annoying part was sculpting his decap. What we do for the decap is we have 2 meshes. So we have his original mesh, which doesn't have any of these wounds on it. When they cut him, we'll swap that out. Once we swap that out, they'll cut down his face and there'll be like a light explosion. And when that explodes, it'll swap to this. What we wanted to do was have that cut go over the edge so it looked more natural. So that's kind of what this is visually representing. And then once the explosion happens, his mouth pretty much split open. His bottom jaw will get cut in half. So we have these little bone bits that are sticking out, little organs and muscle tissue and fat. It's really hard to do because you have all of the ups and downs with the teeth and all that's connected, and it was a huge pain. It took way longer than I thought it would.
First, I was designing a lot of architectures, and once Todd and Chris liked the architecture, then I had to kind of put them into a 3D geometry, which was given to me from level designer. That was kind of hard because everything was made out of a geometry. It was literally just all cubes, and most architectures are not cubes. But I had to come up with a solution to look great. So what you see on the left of my screen are the high vision of sketches, kind of quick kind of color comp. And once they saw this, they kind of like a few of the ideas. This were sent to the level designers, and this is what I got back. Everything was just 2 cube and everything was just all same size. I began to put some of the textures and some of the assets and just kind of try to come up with interesting areas possible. For the final, I kind of took easy design and tried to put them into the scenery. And then I broke off some of the pieces in here just to make it a little bit more interesting, adding some rounder kind of columns, and this was pretty much the final.
A lot of people, when they play a God of War game, it feels like refined design and Greek and classical, but there's always this edge that's a little bit fantastic. Not fantasy, but special and grand. We were always kind of talking like, what is this place? It's just this weird little town in the desert. And so we were kind of talking like, okay, maybe the gods or whoever just chained Polyphemus here. So they added in chain towers with some stands on there so they could watch this sort of battle happen. Maybe we could have some chimneys with smoke coming out of them and some decayed bridges. And some of the buildings are sort of falling apart from previous battles that have happened there. We have these rotundas, sort of gondola tops on top that he can smash. It was definitely really fun to work on.
You have everything feeling kind of brown. The brown rock, you've got sand, which is brownish, you've got wood, ropes. It's hard to see where can you jump as a player. And we really want to highlight some of those edges. So a few strips of color, almost like paint, to help guide the player. It's a kind of a gamey thing, but in the end, if it's going to make the game play better, it's worth sacrificing some of the believability of the world. We're doing things now that we just take for granted that we couldn't have done on God of War 3.
Hi, I'm Todd Pappy, Game Director, God of War Ascension. What you're about to see is a making of video that we've been shooting over about 2+ years. It gives you a good idea of the inception of an idea all the way through to the final product. Keep in mind that this is a work in progress. Enjoy.
You look at any other multiplayer experience, how many of them can you say that there's a big world action thing that is interacting with you? That's definitely going to be the more rememberable thing.
The main sort of drive of it is the thrill of the competition over the glory of the kill. It's a custom arena designed to really accentuate the combat, so it's kind of a twofold thing. We've been working a lot on trying to figure out what spaces work really well for combat. Big open spaces don't work. Small compact spaces work, but only if you have a limited number of people. All of that has taken a lot of work. This is the test level where I've been working on. As he gets hit, he basically goes into this kind of retreated state. So initially his hands are like kind of this on the platform, and then you do damage and he kind of retreats, and then he's got almost like he's kind of hanging on a little bit to sort of sell the fact that he's a little closer to falling off. And because the idea is the chains are basically holding him in place, but also trying to pull him all the time. They're always trying to pull him away, and that's one thing that the animations don't sell that well yet. So many little things you have to worry about, like when his hands are in the arena here, he has collision around his hands, so you can't just run through his hands. But of course, once his hands drop to the edge, that collision has to turn off, a new collision has to turn on. So many little things like that, just to try and make it feel consistent.
It's been definitely a totally different challenge, like I said, than like actually building single player levels. Before, there used to be actual trap down here, but it was just one of those things, just like there was like a trap at one control point, a trap at another control point. It was just like, how about this one control point is just about just fighting? You know, you got full objects that you can do special attacks off of, and it's just battling, but there's an uber power up here that, you know, we can be sitting there fighting. It spawns here. It's like, am I gonna stop fighting you and try to get that? Am I gonna try to just knock you away and stun you up against the wall and then try to hurry up and run and grab the point? Things change based off the need of the design. And it's one of those things, you know, you get this and you see your pitfalls, and then you immediately like, oh yeah, you know, let me hurry and get this stuff clean so I can do the next thing, because I know all the mistakes that I've learned, and to make something even doper. And then hopefully, once everything's said and done, boys be at home, it'll be like, long live play, Sony, we love you.
I'm working in conjunction with the other departments, and we're trying to figure out gameplay as we're going along. It's a lot of troubleshooting, like making sure that the rig is functioning correctly, that his animations are appropriate for what we're trying to do in game. You really have to focus on just making sure that he's believably big. So we have to sell the fact that he's heavy. There's a lot of delay on his upper body and his arms. That just gives a sense that he's big and he's very heavy. The emotional range of this character is frustrated, angry, and tired. We don't want the players to feel sorry for him. We always want the players to feel that he's just this ginormous threat in the background, and that you don't want to mess with this guy or he's gonna freaking kill you.
A huge factor is that we need to have the camera not hiding gameplay from the player. A lot of the foreground stuff we want to put in, we just can't put it in. This is one of the areas that was quite challenging for the art team to make it so gameplay is still acceptable. So we wanted to have something kind of in the foreground to break up the levels and make it feel like rooftop. So we also need to have the player be visible. So one of the solutions was add some destruction.
Evolving the camera systems so that they could handle multiplayer gameplay was a very large challenge. It was a fun challenge too, because we knew right off the bat what we needed the camera system to do. You need to make the cameras much more unified, much more procedural, so that everyone has the same fair view. This allows me to start plotting out where my cameras would go. So I'll turn on my camera layer here. This gives you a pretty good idea of how many camera zones are needed. Every black box is basically an individual camera or a group of cameras. These basically control what you see as you play through. What we're seeing here is the basic look of a navigation camera in a multiplayer level. The player is about 20 meters away from the camera, making them kind of small, but big enough to get the details of which team you're on, this guy's on the red team, and give you a good sense of where you're going in the level. Here's an example of a trap where you can hold on to the lever until you're waiting for some enemy to run in, and then you basically let go of R1, triggers the trap, and the camera will hold there to see if you hit anyone. And one other example of something that our single-player camera system has been great for in terms of multiplayer cameras is shots like this, where I'm no longer using the normal navigation camera because this Cyclops is about to attack. I want to show off full detail of his face, his hand that's about to smash you. That's an area where we're allowed to make the multiplayer cameras feel more single-player. That's another goal of ours, to make the camera system and the game itself to feel like it exists in the same space. Keeping the giant Cyclops in frame was one of the biggest challenges of that level because people really want to just fight other players. I'd be fighting my own cinematographer's instinct I want to show more of this giant epic monster in the background. It was a constant back and forth of, that's too much of him, that's not enough of him.
This is gonna take a little while.
Hi, I'm Todd Pappy, Game Director, God of War Ascension. What you're about to see is a making of video that we've been shooting over about 2+ years. It gives you a good idea of the inception of an idea all the way through to the final product. Keep in mind that this is a work in progress. Enjoy.
The lowest level, what we're trying to do is make me playing against you feel right, and me playing with you feel right. That's where we are right now.
I guess we're bringing the God of War gore to killing your mate, basically, I guess.
Killing your mate, yes, your mate, your buddy. One of the thrilling things about multiplayer, like even in a shooter, is when you get up close, like your heart starts to race. We're definitely trying to go for that.
See the whites of their eyes.
The moves are actually not Kratos moves at all. We did start to get some of it up and running, so you might see some hints of like, oh, maybe I remember from God of War 1, he had a weapon kind of like that, but the moves that we're doing now are entirely Spartan moves, Spartan themed.
The weapons that you carry give them a very distinctive feel.
Each character selects sort of a god class, and that kind of defines what weapons and armor and abilities you can take in. I have basically the Ares sword with the Ares armor, so I can do things like damage attacks, GS kills.
I have a little bit more kind of range, so I have that move that has quite a lot of range to it.
The idea with the hammer is that in a crowd, he can be less specific. Like if you're playing the hammer class, you kind of look for groups of people to kind of jump in there. And that actually causes kind of groups to disperse, which is kind of nice. So depending on like who shows up with what weapon, people start to kind of change their play style a little bit.
Kratos is our hero. He has to be the strongest, the coolest, the most powerful one. These guys are still pretty formidable. These guys have to be fair. Their moves have to be readable. Some of the moves are a little slowed down, so they're not as quick as Kratos, but they have to be fair. For instance, we have unblockable now. Whenever you see this symbol, that means if you block it, you're gonna get staggered. And that really helps to make it read. Each weapon's like its own full character. The navigations, they all have to be redone for every weapon. The attacks are all redone. There's no real sharing between weapons. They're just too unique that you can't really wield them the same. We'll come up with moves based off of usability, practicality, flashiness, just things that people usually expect to see and people would want to see. Sometimes just try and get the best look, and then we'll just tweak and tune it until it's actually useful. This is the Cyclone move. If Kratos did this move, I don't think he'd have this much recovery time, and the startup would be pretty quick. This was one of my favorites, the uppercut. It's pretty useful in games, and people are liking it. I just liked it. I reappropriated one of the Olympus Swords animations from God of War 2. That one just stayed in one place and did too, but this one I added a crazy dash to it and a lot more height. There's gonna be a lot of different specials that you're gonna be able to do. Those will be a lot of work to knock out, but I mean, those are fun though. You know, it's just fun doing those.
What's nice about certainly this kind of game is that anyone can kind of get the kill, anyone can kind of come in there and finish it off. You're definitely not invincible. That's one thing we really try to do is that, you know, the characters, they can take some hits, but not a whole bunch, so that even a new character might get in there, and if he gets one blow, two blows, lands a few, he's definitely gonna get the kill, and that's also what traps kind of add for it. With traps, it really doesn't take a whole lot of, you know, timing and skill and reflex. It's literally like it's sort of more planning and strategic element where it's like, I know people want to take this point. I know this trap covers that point. If I can predict that, then I can basically get a kill no matter how skilled the other player is.
I'm Todd Pappy, Game Director, God of War Ascension. What you're about to see is a making of video that we've been shooting over about 2+ years. It gives you a good idea of the inception of an idea all the way through to the final product. Keep in mind that this is a work in progress. Enjoy.
The biggest problem with multiplayer for us is just technology. We've never done multiplayer before.
In the last year, it felt like another 3 years.
God of War is historically a single-player game, and there's a lot of code that works until you put it in an online environment, and then it falls apart. What I'm doing is basically going through a lot of the code and making sure that we consider what happens when a second person runs the lever code and what happens when a third person pulls the lever. Is everyone seeing the same thing at the same time?
At this moment, I'm feeling hopeful. We aren't quite there yet. There are 2 players on 2 different machines, and one is hitting the other with a sword. So that motion of the sword has to connect on the attacker's machine, and then the result of that collision needs to be sent to the defender's machine. And on defender's machine, we need to decide, was that move blocked or parried or countered? And then the response has to go back to the attacker's machine. All of that has somehow to happen in such a way that both of these players think that it is seamless and there is no lag, and it's all just free-flowing combat.
People would press block and they'd actually get the block guard up with the sword, and then they'd be told, you got hit. And they're like, Glenn?
The actual choice of where these decisions are being made, attackers' machines, defenders' machines, that choice is probably the hardest problem of them all.
We do what we call pre-hit. So we actually detect that in the future we're about to hit somebody, and we actually kind of, if you can see like an arc here. So we actually can look ahead maybe 100, 200 milliseconds. And so I'm actually saying, I hit you here, and that actually gets sent over the network. The other guy receives it before my sword's even touched him. And if we time it right, he tends to reply, in the common case, to us before the sword's even touched him on our machine. So we actually have all the lag hidden by committing to the hit early.
One of the big things that felt wrong for so long with the combat was the technical networking side of it, which I think we've finally broken the back of now, haven't we?
We're getting over a hump. It does feel like that.
Fixing the lag.
So we're able to hide about 100 milliseconds, 150 milliseconds of latency. I consider lag to be pretty much a solved problem at this point.
One of the big themes that came out of last week's Friday playtest was that the quality of the experience has a lot to do with the caliber of the people you're playing against.
I focus on matchmaking. Without matchmaking, you won't be able to find your peers. You won't be able to find other players to play. So we basically pair up players so that they can have a better time. The more players we have, the quality of the matchmaking improves. You always have to consider, should we let people play, or should we have a better quality of matchmaking? I'm hoping to have a better matchmaking experience because we have developed everything in the house. We are doing something completely different. We are deploying the code ourselves, and we are managing all aspects of it. So there's no one to call when something happens except ourselves.
Now we're going to actually play sheeted 60. That was started like inefficient, running at 45. And the intention of the playtest is to get the combat feel at 60.
We're playing the game every week. We're making sure that everyone gets a controller in their hands and they start bashing each other with swords and hammers, and it's a lot of fun.
The fact that programmers are playing it is a very positive step. Programmers want to write code, and some don't want to play the game they're making, and that's okay. But when you're making a multiplayer game, it's really important that you iterate and you see the changes you make playtest to playtest.
A few weeks ago, we were having issues getting people coming and playing because I think the combat was in a bit of a rough spot. We knocked off a huge number of bugs, and suddenly everyone was just more engaged with the game.
We were like floundering, and now we've iterated our way into a good place. So I feel happy about where we've been, and I feel excited about where we're going to end up.
So yeah, these videos are confirming my suspicion of them dumping most of the game's resources into multiplayer. So. But if you're gonna do that, do about a prequel for sure. Doing that.
Hi, I'm Todd Pappy, Game Director at God of War Ascension. What you're about to see is a making of video that we've been shooting over about 2+ years. It gives you a good idea of the inception of an idea all the way through to the final product. Keep in mind that this is a work in progress. Enjoy.
Level design is a fantasy. I want to do something that I can't do in real life. Level design is also a challenge. It's not easy, it's not handed to me. I feel like I accomplished something when I did it. And in the end, level design is about giving that reward. You want to do it again and again and again and again. Moving to a multiplayer game, we can't take all of the things that we did with single player and think that they're going to work in multiplayer. That involves levels in terms of how you're going to funnel players together while they're playing cooperatively, or how are you going to get players to run routes in a map when they're playing against each other so that they don't all clump up in the same areas.
God of War multiplayer is all about telling the single-player experience of God of War in the context of a multiplayer environment. You have the exotic locations, the grand set pieces, the cool mechanical contraptions that you're used to using in God of War, and the lore that takes place in the God of War universe contained in these maps. They're very well thought out, with very high level design and production value.
I think you'd expect that the levels in multiplayer are simpler than the single player, but they're, I'd say, 5 times as complicated. We've got traps, we've got different capture points, 10 different chests, big titans in the background, things like that. There's just so much going on.
I haven't seen a multiplayer out there like our game, and for us, we wanted to make sure that we weren't copying anybody, and it feels like God of War.
We're going to breathe a lot
Yeah,
of
they
fresh
definitely
life
did that. It's a very
into
unique
this
multiplayer
genre, and we're
experience.
really creating kind of a whole new multiplayer genre.
The tutorial level that we're going to have for multiplayer is basically the player's introduction to multiplayer. You're going to start off as a warrior. You're imprisoned in a location that I cannot name or I'll get killed. Your life is about to flash before your eyes. When that happens, you're summoned to the gods, and the gods teach you how to fight and how to go, bring about glory for them. So how we want to kind of do this is you see like the establishing shot of the actual warrior coming down, and then you wind up seeing, the Zeus out in the foreground. So you're going up to actually go meet with the gods. Obviously, when you're in this point, you won't have your armor, you won't have your weapon, but since you'll have a head. I don't have a head right now.
I do,
so,
kid.
Right now, I'm just teeth and eyes. There's these statues that represent all the gods in the background. You get prompted to select one of your allegiances. You got Ares, Hades, Zeus, Poseidon. I'll walk up over here, and when I come to Ares, Ares makes a plea for me. Once you select a god, you'll actually get whatever weapon is best for them. So like for Ares, it's the sword. For Hades, it's the hammer. Zeus is the gauntlet. Poseidon is the spear. You start seeing the light, and when you interact with it, that's when this guy appears. From this normal tutorial, he's just asking me to do quick attacks on him. Then after you go through the quick attack things, hey, do heavy attacks. There's certain things that we need to teach you in a way that's directly related to the game. So take for instance how it told me to do my L2, and my L2 is escape. And that's very key because that gets you out of a lot of situations. And then once you actually beat them, you get the praise from the gods. You're good to go. By that point in time this is done, you should be able to at least do basic fighting.
We really recognized that we needed this after a few play tests, and people didn't know a lot of the moves in the game, and it was too much to absorb at first. So, okay, we really need to have them go through a tutorial level. We'll take this, and we will do a bit of a block out where it's a little bit more detail, increase the scale, make it feel a little bit more epic. We added these stairs. You'll see Zeus looking right at you, godly statue, just run up here. This is the tutorial level running in the game right now. Let's see kind of what it would look like. Let's just get a feel for it. This all kind of came last second, but we're behind it. It's gonna be awesome. I'm pretty excited about it.
Excellent.
We're trying to make it as epic and as cool looking as possible. That's kind of the challenge, making sure that there's always something to do for everyone and there's always some cool moment that's a very God of War moment. One of the first levels we started designing was the Troy level. The idea behind that one was because we got the two factions of the Spartans and the Trojans, it made sense to have a map that kind of is based around the war between the two of them. There will be an objective at some point that gives them kind of a big bonus, and that is to fire off a catapult to one position. So the Trojans will be trying to destroy the Trojan horse, and then the Spartans will be trying to destroy the statue of Apollo. This is an overview of the Troy map. Spartans
Pretty sure that's the
start
map I was
from the
on when
left,
the game got booted.
Trojans start from the right. There's like 3 tiers basically. The bottom tier, the middle tier, and then the back top tier. And all of those tiers are kind of interconnected, and you can cross over between all of them. The unique thing about this map is that you can use the life cycle, which appears in the single player as well. So you'll see, like, for example, this bridge here, that can collapse away. One of the first things you can do is pick up the life cycle. At the moment it looks like a flag, but we'll actually get it look like a life cycle. And what you can do with that is life cycle different areas in the map. So for example, this gate, I can life cycle it up, and that creates like a barrier no one can get through, but they can actually hack through it eventually, but it'll slow them down. I can bring it down again, of course. Here, there's another life cycle thing. So if someone, for example, is chasing me, I can just stop, life cycle that away. If they get killed by it, it counts as a trap, so I get the extra points for it as well. And then one of the bigger life cycle moments is the bridge in the center. So this one is kind of connecting the 2 middle points. You can life cycle like part of it. We can life cycle the whole thing. Here's angry soldiers, they're throwing their spears at you. Here's another hidden trap, so this flamethrower, I get this view from my side, and I can kind of suddenly attack someone. On their side, they never really see if I'm really behind them. They can only see the flame, but they don't know if someone's actually waiting for them there. As the player with a life cycle, can actually bring the catapult back to its original kind of position. If I'm the Trojan and I hit it now, it will rotate to the left and fire off something to the Trojan horse, catches on fire, looks cool in the background. You get some points for it. It doesn't end the match, but gives you some favor. We definitely want to encourage the level design to kind of support 2 or more players kind of working together.
Troy is the biggest level we have. It's absolutely massive. You could take 2 large levels from, say, God of War 3, you could fit them right inside of Troy, and Troy would still be bigger. There's just so much there, and on top of that, we have to have it running with 8 players. That's, I'd say, the biggest challenge. The other challenge among memory and performance is just getting it done.
Troy is fun because I remember seeing the first block model of the game, and it's like this whole city, and so I was going, oh wow, you know, when I'm painting this, it's like, okay, here's the armory, and maybe there's like a garden down there, and this is where people would go to the market and buy stuff. So this was from the level designer, the block model before anything else is existing. It's really fun and challenging to work on top of this because it's so abstract that you're like, okay, what can this be? You know, what can I turn that shape into? So I wanted to show this city that's in ruin, and since it's at night, you know, I wanted the lighting to be really dramatic. The city sort of goes down and it's on fire. And then this is a closer view of one of the areas, just going in and populating it and refining some of the architecture a little bit. And then this was an object in the level that you can grab, and it's our flamethrower. You can get behind it and roast your enemies. These were really fun to design as well.
My favorite part of the level is there's this little section where there's the building kind of in the middle, and there's the flamethrower at the bottom. This is the concept for this building. So originally you enter on the backside because for the gameplay we had to change it. See, the camera is looking this way so they couldn't see. I opened up this wall so you can get in here and you can use the flamethrower.
When I set out to create a multiplayer map, it's very similar to the way we create single-player maps. I like to start with one idea, something to hook it into. For one of the maps, the idea was there's a huge Gorgon statue. She's the kind of focal point of this map, and that everything is built kind of around her. And see the levels kind of built on top of the creature, and then we'll get down in here and I can kind of show you what the space feels like. Here's a flamethrower, so I can kill guys with that. I can jump down below. There's a lot of cool stuff I can pick up, like the club, which I can swing and I can throw it at guys. And just very exciting to run around and be able to manipulate different things in the environment. From here, I can use the cannon, which I can fire, and it will basically, as you can see, kind of mortar everybody down below. And then I can move that actually up to a higher location as well, and then do the same with this top tier. So where you saw guys before that were using the various weapons and using the head, I can surprise them and hit them with the cannon. And then if I jump through the portal, I'm back at the middle. So you can see that it weaves in and out of itself in a balanced way that makes sense. People seem to really like this map, and it's exciting to be able to get it to a place where it feels pretty complete before Art goes to it. I think the most rewarding part, next to seeing people play your level and telling you they like it, is certainly getting the art on top of it.
As environment artists on multiplayer, you really
Yeah,
do
that
need to
was
keep
not
in
what it
mind
ended up being
that
like at the end.
the
It was
player
not a
is
statue, it was a
the
giant
main
organ
focus of everything.
that was
If people
fucking
remember
with you
from
the
God of War
entire
2,
time.
there was a whole level of the bog, and we're kind of bringing that back into Ascension, revisualizing it, making it prettier, and making it more nostalgic for the players. So we fleshed out that we wanted dark tones accented by like gold or bronze. Just looking at the vines happening here, trees and the edge over here for the rocks. There's a lot of roots going on. There's a lot of broken pillars. This is the stuff that really takes the most time. Adding personality to the level, little nicks on the columns, little like cutoffs. This is a pretty important piece. So this would be its own unique texture, whereas this column or these pieces right here, this trim even, it would be tileable so that it would be easier to use throughout the level. I like to start off by kind of getting the shape first. Right now this is smooth, and eventually I'll convert it to actual polys, and this is obviously way too expensive for the level, so we take this and bake it down to the low poly, and it already has all that detail. And as I'm working, I'm gonna keep using these elements that I've established here and eventually bring it up to the other parts of the level that aren't arted yet. It just makes things a lot faster. This level has gone through so much design changes, and I feel like I'm almost pressed up against a wall, sort of. I definitely need to kick it into overdrive now that everything's settled.
This is the Labyrinth. The high concept for it is based off the Labyrinth from God of War 3, so we're trying to bring back some iconic locations from the previous game. How cool would it be to have the players kind of in and inside the Labyrinth while it's being constructed? This is the starting cube where players actually jump out of. The other side, the Trojan side, will have the same setup so they can kind of get into theirs. Both of these cubes meet up together, and then they start kind of rotating around each other, so they change their positions 90 degrees, and then eventually a third
Yeah,
cube,
this is a
the
pretty
green
prominent
cube comes
location in the third game.
The green one and the red one and the blue one kind of lock into place, and then you're moving between all three of them. Then that's when we also bring in the Scorpion. He'll actually kind of come up from the side of the cube and try and attack. That's the basic setup. So this is the intro. Each faction starts on their own side. The cubes lock into place. Then you can actually jump down and you're on the top tier of the cube. Here you can get the pickups, you can set some of the traps, and this is where the domination point is. While you're doing that, the two cubes actually meet up in the middle. Each level has its own trap, so this one, you got your flamethrower there, and you've got like a conveyor belt kind of mechanism that you can use to jump off at different levels of the map. The cubes start rotating, and now they'll meet in the center. So now these have connected, now there's opened up new areas. The hard part designing this level was trying to keep it as simple as possible, but still have the movement and the rotation without confusing players. So that's why you see it's mostly kind of looking at it on a side view. We found that was the easiest way for players to kind of know where they are and where they are in relation to everyone else. So you see in the background, that's the cage where Pandora was in the actual single player. You'll see cubes moving around in the background throughout the game, so things are slowly happening in the background while Kratos is basically assembling the labyrinth in God of War 3. Scorpion should appear as well. There he is. Basically, he's kind of harassing you and protecting that point and trying to swat players off it. The idea is that you'll eventually get favor for hitting his arms or, kind of damaging him and potentially killing him or throwing him off the edge or tearing off his arm and putting it into the grinder or something like that. So
it's like the cubes are moving around, they're sliding in and out. You gotta be careful because they move and everybody will get thrown off of it. So like they're these huge titans. And then there's also the Scorpion that makes his appearance and comes in there and attacks you while you're on the edge of the cube. So for God of War, people who play God of War 3 is going to be an awesome level. People who have never played God of War 3, it's going to be awesome for them too.
One of the cool things that we have an opportunity to do in our multiplayer is to give fans new places to play, but also go and revisit older places that they loved from the previous God of Wars. One of the things that we're always trying to do is like, how can we make this aesthetically feel like it was ripped apart? And so one of the things we talked about, maybe the exterior wood of this cube is really dark and damp, but once it's ripped open, all the wood inside is like dry. So that might help sell our story a little bit more. And then what are the main like iconic pieces of these cubes from God of War 3 that people will recognize? And it's like, oh, these like cool clamp sort of doorway pieces, and going in and going, oh yeah, there were all these really cool Icarus kind of murals around, so let's put some of those in. Even though we're not going to go over here, we're going to break some stuff up, we'll put some moving stuff there and really like let the player's imagination fill in the rest and imagine that, you know, this is like this huge mechanical marvel that extends beyond where you can travel. Going more detailed and going to the top is all wood and you have that large clamp, and then maybe the next layer of wood got ripped off, so then we can see more of that refined metal where maybe there's gears and vents inside of that. So we try and put love into everything that we can, and I think that's what makes our game great, and you know, really separates it, is how much sort of detail as it, you know, funnels down.
Okay, we're about halfway there. Ugh.
Hi, I'm Todd Pappy, Game Director at God of War Ascension. What you're about to see is a making of video that we've been shooting over about 2+ years. It gives you a good idea of the inception of an idea all the way through to the final product. Keep in mind that this is a work in progress. Enjoy.
Effing slide mechanic, man.
When we first started talking about it, it was, all right, let's run on some snakes and see what that looks like.
What I was given was there's a python that's wrapped around this entire level.
First reaction about the snake was, this is going to be huge and epic, and it's going to take a lot of work. You know, that's what God of War is big challenges and epic pieces and things like that. These are initial concepts of head designs. For instance, this one's more stylized. This one's a little bit more serpent, dragon-like, and more kind of ancient looking, kind of more mechanical. So I went through lots of variations on scaling patterns. Some of these show a little bit more direction, some are more stylized. Trying to keep the overall feel of Python stripes. And this one's the most finalized version.
It's a mechanical snake. It's the key to getting inside of the temple. We aimed for about 5 pieces that we could string along together to make one complete python. This is our base piece right here. So this is kind of a U-shaped hallway. It's the same thing, but slanted. And this is a quarter piece that's cut out. We can rotate this.
Very early,
this can
yeah.
become walking space,
Yeah,
climb
that one,
space,
that
or
block
ceiling
there is how you
climb.
walk into
So
third
once I
game.
had the shapes that I wanted, then I strung them
Go on the
along
count
together.
before this one.
Each color here represents a different shape. And one mechanic that we're going to use is a sliding mechanic. You're controlling them, and you have to move side to side and actively avoid falling off while it's moving. I think all the time spent up front and all the planning and everything, thinking through everything on paper helped tremendously.
Well, she didn't have to make
Interesting
them
to
once
it's
or
the job of
twice.
the designer to come up with a wild idea that has never been seen before, that is almost unachievable, and it's the artist's job to figure out how can we pull this off, and can we even pull it off, and where can we cut corners and do some tricks. This is the first snake that we have in production. We've been going through a lot of testing of how we can actually manage to build it, and what we ended up coming up with is kind of a color-coded system with different sections of the snake that we would duplicate. Once this is built out by the artist, the tech artist will go in and we create a snake map, and it's color-coded. We take this red section, just duplicate it 5 times right there. We'll take the pink section, duplicate it 4 more times, and that's where our ref noting comes in, because we only pay the initial cost in memory for that first time, and then all those other sequential times are basically free. So looking at the exterior, this is our first snake. When you get to the top, you just see how big it is. You know, if we go to a wireframe, we can see actually
how much detail that is. It's pretty amazing. I mean, it's almost just like a solid block. We're really pushing the system right here to the limits. I think if I fly back a little bit more, I'm just gonna crash it because it's just too much. There it goes, frozen. So we're right on the edge of pushing what's possible on the PS3.
Nice, there you go.
I've been on Delphi Exterior for around 6 months. I see myself being on it till the end, which would be another 1.5 years. The final ride back started off with just me typing up 20 ideas of cool moments you could have on like a kind of fast-paced ride. It's gonna be the wild ride. Sent it to Todd, and then he just kind of said, okay, I like this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, not this one, not this one, not this one. That's how it started. So this is one of them where it's really rough and probably no one can tell what's going on except me. There's obstacles in the environment, so if you don't move, they brush you off. There's another one that we have where you're sliding and you see it kind of curling and going ahead below you. You get this big jump, a very cool moment that we had. Once Todd was happy with those, I went back to paper and then I took those moments and laid out how I wanted to tie them all together. And I just laid it out in a timeline. I continued and made actual paths, stringing everything together. So once I was happy with one of them, then I took it back to the editor and built it out. Here we have that section where you're brushed off of it. You slide on the environment, and you see it twisting below you.
That was a pretty cool sequence, though, when you were sliding down the ice.
Jump.
All the snakes
And
were
land
flopping around
back on
everywhere.
top.
Or sliding
The challenge
everywhere.
was
Everyone
figuring out a way to
term it.
have it all make sense. I always imagine something big and grand like it is.
Delphi Exterior is coming together. It's obviously using our Titan tech in a different way that players never seen before, and you know, this is a big wow moment.
This level is like an insane amusement park ride. I mean, you're moving through this thing, and it's really tense. It's really kind of a really stressful level because you're used to these amusement park rides where you're just sort of riding along, but you're like, no, man, you gotta jump, you gotta go, and you gotta do this stuff. What I'm working on right now are these interior ice caves, giant caverns and small little tubes with the snakes burrowing through. I'm working on some of the architecture and also some of these big, giant, massive chains that are helping to propel the snake along. One of the interesting things we have is the technology's height map where I can layer on the snow in a very realistic way. One of the great things is it can actually sit inside all of the little cracks. Previously, it would just lay on top of it. One of the other interesting things is ice technology. I have this layer of ice that sits on top of the brick, and with this height map tools, you can really make it feel like the ice lays inside the cracks, and I have the ability to add variation to this thing. So here we have the large cavern, and we see these tower, the architecture, and some of the chains that are kind of propelling this snake along.
In Delphi, we now have these giant mechanical snakes that, once Kratos powers up, are just tearing through the environment. You can go in them, you can climb on them or under them, but they're still swaying and undulating. Making good cameras that worked with that undulation was a real challenge. Here's an example of just some of the shots that I'm afforded by being in an outdoor environment where I just want to let the scene speak for itself. This is a really cool area that the artist Eric Jacobson helped put in, where I'd give him the camera's path, and then he put really cool artwork in front of it, these blocks of ice. Very much like a cool carnival ride.
A lighting artist basically populates the world and brings it to life. I always consider myself kind of a painter, but I paint with light. I think it's incredibly important. It's kind of the unifying element. It brings the textures and the models, and it brings it all together and gives it atmosphere, a mood, and helps tell the story. So you can see all my lights in this file right now, and some of them have really small radiuses, but I can also see them in Maya. So here I have a firelight. If I turn on my radius, you can see the radius, how big it is here. So that's a visual representation. I can make it bigger, so then it'll affect more of the scene. I can make it huge, and it'll affect even more. I always play around a lot with the radius. So see how I bumped up that light now? I can really make it go extreme and really strong. and see now it's affecting more of the scene. So this is the scene that went through first pass lighting. Here you can see the sunlight and the ambient affecting the scene. If I turn off the sun, the scene would look like this, and all you have is the ambient light. If I turn off the ambient light, it would look like this. And you can see like all the shadows turn completely black and you don't have any information in there. When I do the lighting, I see the environment artist's reaction. They're like, oh wow, you made my level look awesome.
I love that level. I mean, it took us a long time to get it to the point that it's at right now, but that's because it was new, uncharted grounds. We haven't done that stuff before. I love it, and I've had plenty of people come up to me and say Luis really knocked it out of the park with the art that I've been seeing. I think this will be a huge showcase for the project. I'm Todd Pappy, Game Director, God of War Ascension. What you're about to see is a making of video that we've been shooting over about 2+ years. It gives you a good idea of the inception of an idea all the way through to the final product. Keep in mind that this is a work in progress. Enjoy. Hecaton Curies, I call him Hector, is a 100-arm, 50-head creature in mythology. And again, like the Titans, these were actually stronger than the gods.
There are these giants that took part in the big war between the gods and the Titans. I think they guard the Titans that are in hell.
It's something that we've never seen before in our mythos, and so we thought that it would be a really cool prison level where you can be walking around and see eyes on the walls or on the ground. You feel like somebody's always watching you. There's actually a shanty town in Brazil that was kind of a little bit of the inspiration for this.
One of the major elements of the entire God of War series is that first big boss battle, the big in-your-face moment, in medias res thing that God of War does so well. Going back into the past with the Hydra and the Colossus, with Gaia and Poseidon, I have some big shoes to fill. It's really scary, but it's also really exciting because this is, you know, just a continuation in the big moments, the most memorable moments of all of God of War. So based on the concept of 50 heads and 100 arms, I thought it would be interesting to make it a creature at first. So I went with an octopus and created this palace on top of a giant land octopus that's living in the ground. We ended up doing some more, so this is a standard figure with the 100 arms coming out of every pore of the body. And I was thinking that the prison palace thing could be its upper body head shape, and that it would just have these rotating faces going all the way around. Here's sort of the monster finger tentacle things. These guys would be at the very tips of every arm. Here's some more variations of them. So I went back and forth from pretty human-looking elements to some really creature-based ones. Hecaton Curies is just a puppet. The Fury is the controller. So she's the primary villain that you need to be getting as Kratos. So this is the Hecaton Curies. The Hecaton Curies is the first prisoner of the Furies. And over the millennia, the Furies just built on top of it so that all of the other prisoners and subjects of the Furies now live in or are tortured on the surface of Hecaton Curies. So another aspect of the pitch was the introduction of where Kratos is. The player comes awake and they are in a world and they're not really sure what's going on. We didn't want to have the fact that he's basically tied to a giant be obvious. The initial sequence is Kratos is actually inside the roof of the mouth. This is like the molars and the teeth up here, and sort of the floor has been built into the bottom jaw. I did a bunch of passes of the head as if it were still alive. These are all heads pre-having the buildings installed, except for this one here. And this is the most recent one. I just did this one yesterday. I wanted to make sure that the Hecaton Curies was obviously a puppet. So I carved out its eyes so that people would live in there, and you know, whenever it's attacking or something like that, you would be able to hear screams from inside it. This thing is not doing this of its own volition. It's a zombie. So this is where I'm at as of this moment.
I'm a little
definitely
nervous,
very cool
but I'm
level,
excited.
for sure.
I want to deliver something that kind of brings something new to the God of War franchise. This gives me a lot of inspiration and ideas for how this potentially looks. So in an actual level, and the shell's basically the template. What we base this off of is a script, and that script basically calls out all the different story moments. And so we kind of take that script, and then now we're building this out in 3D. Imagine this is one of the arms. So here, you're kind of running up an arm, and then there'll be combat in here. The idea here is just putting a stake in the ground. Once we get this feeling right and the space feels right, then we'll actually divvy this up, and a designer will own different sections, and then really go into detail.
Hecaton has had some changes. It's had some birthing pains. One of the defining moments of feedback for us is when, during the meeting, it was stated that Monster didn't feel like a cover monster. You know, like if we were to illustrate him and have him fighting Kratos on a cover, that monster didn't look enough for a person to want to play the game. And once we figured that out, we completely changed direction. Originally, our concept was that Hecaton was the first breaker of oaths, and thus the Fury's first victim or prisoner, and they just built a prison around him and on him and in him. I've been working on the creature hand for a while now. We needed a little bit more intelligence in the creature. We wanted to include something to hit. Then I started implementing things like human body parts or ways to break the arm up in unusual ways. Kept coming back to, we don't want it to feel like a hand, but make it feel a little bit like a hand. Here's the parasite wearing the hand as a jacket. It can get tough to keep the creative juices going, but ultimately that's the purpose for a concept artist, is to keep bringing something new to the table and find as many solutions that you possibly can for that one problem. At this point, Todd was really interested in looking at how we could integrate the parasite aspect. We were looking at things like rhino horn beetles as influences, and ultimately those things did stick. So this shape, from here on out, you'll be seeing a lot of. I liked this one a lot, the sort of flounder hand. I name all of these when I'm by myself, alone in the dark. This is Autonomous, Junior, Flounder Face, Squeeble, and Juicer. They're all part of the same family. It's a problem. So this ended up being the defining point where we were taking it into the final. Ultimately, this is what we're going with. This is the harpoon, which will retract into the body. This is the retracted version so that he can still grab Kratos. And then finally, the big reveal is the split of the two forearm bones with the hands on them. And then we'll have this center monster. Right now, this is the final look. He's way out there. Generally, the way I approach things is I start with realism and then kind of like just broach a little bit until things get creepier and creepier. This time I'm starting out in left field and kind of bringing it back. It's been a new experience for me, but it's exciting because I'm doing something that I totally wouldn't have conceived of myself doing before.
Hecaton's a little behind right now, from my point of view. But then, on the other hand, that's where we got to balance the awesome with the schedule. So, God bless America. It better be good.
With creating Hecaton, we had to kind of create its own mythos. So I think that's kind of what took us a very long time to develop in BizDev, is what path do we want to take and making sure that it actually looks cool and fits in our universe.
This is just the primary folder. We're not even getting into subset folders of drawings upon drawings, redrawings, redesigns, and initial passes at the Hecaton Curious monster. And each one of these folders is just like this. With the Hecaton Curious head, once we figured out that, we're going to break out the face, we're going to try and do a transformation like we did with the Heca hand, things started to unfold properly. So here, I'm going way more tragic. This is an affliction that's been thrown upon him. He's brought back from the dead, blinks at re-life, and then suddenly his face bursts open. So an early look at it with the environment. I built out orthos from this image, and they went to a gray model right away.
One of the biggest cool things about this guy is that the environment is all integrated into the character. Like Kronos last game was a Titan, but you're on just like a character, basically. And what I like about this one is like we have a Titan that's huge, and you have environments also on him. So basically how I started this guy is I decided I'm just going to knock out the sculpt as fast as I can. Sukru, who's one of the environment artists working on it, kind of blocked in some buildings here, because eventually we're going to have to integrate the skin into these buildings, and I'm going to have to work with Sukru to do that. Here's the teeth, so I kind of went in and sculpted some claws, and I duplicated them all around it real quick so I can make something. This is my little prototype here. You can see all the joints. You can see in the front and all around all the joint chains and how they open and close. And this is what I was prototyping to try and get an idea of how this would work. So after I sculpted in the head all torn up, I took my claws and I put joints in them and then made it open. And I put them where I thought they'd go and they opened. And just kept on reverse engineering, and I'd open and close it, and move joints till I got basically to this point where I could have it open and close, and our director could check it out and see what he thinks. Before this was transformed, I went in and finalized the sculpt. So this is where the kind of stuff I get to deal with, like how is it gonna crack and break? There's this layer here I made, and I did this in Mudbox where I went in with photos and basically cracked up dry looking skin everywhere. So the nice thing about Mudbox, we use this a lot now. Mudbox allows us to take our in-game model with normal maps and everything and paint directly on it. So I have a layer here, the cracks layer, and basically what I've been doing is I will use photos to overlay cracks. There's a lot more subtle stuff now, because the main thing is you want it to naturally feel like it's cracking, not just cracks for no reason. Overall, the design is really solid, and like I look at it and I'm like, oh, it makes sense. This is what I'm making.
Since this is the first level of the game, we want to teach the player, the basics, right? This time the tutorial is different than the previous God of Wars in the sense that we're not opening with a fight. This time around, we're actually going to try to do a chase. You want it to be high action, but at the same time, this could be the first time someone has played this game. That's been a bit of a challenge. This is the starting area for Hecaton. And as you can see, there's a Fury that you're supposed to chase. So basically, if I zoom out here, you can see that we were chained up to the roof of Hecaton's mouth. So after you break yourself free, you start your chase. So these are prisoners, obviously. As you move, she causes stuff to fall, so that's kind of a new ability for Kratos where he can vault over these objects. You continue to chase her, she closes gates. This is where the player can actually double jump for the first time. She just keeps leading you on. She's like, come get me, Kratos. And then this time, you come over and you slide, and you couldn't stop yourself, so you basically crash through. She injects these guys on the ground with parasites, which causes them to come alive. So during the course of the fight, some of these cells are gonna get ripped off. When this one gets ripped off, it actually opens up the cell, and so now you're kind of on the outside. Here, there's gonna be a strength moment where Kratos actually busts open the gate, and he's gonna re-enter the prison. You'll see that it's lined with a bunch of jail cells, and there'll be arms sticking out, and you'll see the Fury again. You're like, oh, there she is. And as you make your way to get her, a huge hand comes crashing down. This is kind of when we have the first reveal of this huge arm. You kind of ride the arm out, and then here you can see, this is the main arm, and off of the main arm, smaller arms, and that's where you started. And so basically, here's the 6th arm. There's 3 on this side, 3 on that side. Here's legs here, and he's kind of reaching up towards the sky. That was his last stand. We had to create large spaces because of new mechanics like slide. You're moving pretty fast.
I think this game is definitely different than previous game because first of all, it's more epic, more bigger. And again, we try to use some of the architectures that we haven't done. So here what you see is kind of really very high vision concept coming up with the Hecaton architecture. This is another sketch, a little bit different architecture style, trying to add a lot of triangular stuff, see how Todd and Chris are reacting to that. They love all this kind of pointing stuff coming out. They wanted me to kind of take over on a color pass. And then they finally decided to go with these 2 directions. This feels definitely texture feels too similar, and it's kind of hard to read what's architectures and what's the street. What you see here, they wanted a warmer tone in the street and then maybe cooler tones in the architectural stuff. So what you see on top here is the rough 3D model that I got from environment artists, and they wanted me to put all the architectures into their 3D, see if everything works out. The street is made out of hackathon body, so we try to make it a little bit more flesh, so giving it a little bit more warmer tone than architecture.
Jung Park did some high vision paintings that were loose but had this like eerie, cloudy, just kind of wet and dirty street. Just kind of working off of that high vision stuff, I really helped to refine exactly what those details are. This is the first boss arena where you encounter this sort of arm creature that is growing on top of a hecaton. He moves his arm, and as it turns, I kind of was like, oh, maybe as he's sort of decayed over time, a lot of the stonework isn't quite held down, and so as he turns, a lot of it falls apart. I thought that would be really cool to show just this decay, and you see these giant chunks falling off. After you defeat this beast, you know, the arm turns back and you slide down this sort of road. So also going in and going, oh, there's all these pitfalls that you could go into, and here's like some prisons underneath there. His hand is actually like ripped off, so it's still stuck to a wall, and that's something that you get to encounter later.
The hardest thing for Hecaton so far is just placing everything so it works with design and the composition of everything and just the sheer scale of everything. And this is the whole city, and he's huge. His figure goes all the way down. The player will start off inside his mouth, and you do a battle in here, and before you know it, you're on your way going through all these jail cells that are down here, making your way through the arm, and then this whole thing moves, and everything's rigged. Everything in the scene is going to be rigged onto this character. Again, this is way bigger than the previous things that we've done before, more complicated. Now I'm working on this. This is called Hecaton 100, and I got some textures that are blocked out. All the stuff is suspended by big chains. You'll see arms sticking out of windows, and you'll see bodies inside these cages and everything. And that's Hecaton so far.
And I'm getting tired. Yeah, that's why I kind of wanted to jam all this bonus stuff into one episode, even if it's longer than an hour. Just because at the end of the day, the more important stuff is the story. The single player game.
Hi, I'm Todd Pappy, Game Director, God of War
I thought
Ascension.
it'd be kinda cool
What
to
you're
go
about
over
to see
some of
is a
the
making of
stuff,
video that we've been
especially
shooting
the
over
Origins,
about
some pretty
2+
cool
years.
stuff,
It
but
gives
this
you a
one's
good
probably
idea
only so
of
long,
the
much
inception
longer
of
because
an
it has the
idea all the way
multiplayer
through
plus
to
the
the final
campaign.
product. Keep in mind that this is a
This
work in
one,
progress.
this one's
Enjoy.
games, arguably bonus content might be twice as long, especially when you consider going through the multiplayer kind of waiting period.
Today was our really roughing out the beats for Hecaton, which is our opening boss level.
I needed a reason to make Hecaton come alive other than Hecaton was already alive right off the bat. Because I thought that it was far more interesting that Hecaton was like, had the city that was built on top of it, and there you didn't know that. Hecaton is the beginning of the game. Kratos starts in Hecaton. It's essentially a prison. The player doesn't know why Kratos is here just yet. And where it is in the story is the very, very, very beginning. It's like pre-God of War 1. So Kratos has already killed his family, and he's dealing with the torments of that. He's kind of locked up in this prison, and the Furies are torturing him about what he's done in his past.
Like, the Furies are the ones that want to keep Kratos there, and they want to continue to mess with him and torture him. And it's against their wishes that he's getting out of there, so they'll do anything in their power to make sure that he doesn't escape.
There's still so many things that we gotta basically answer. The stuff that I've seen so far, I think is really promising and hopefully feels very, very different than what we've done in the past. And again, that's what we're striving for, is to make this feel new. We got probably roughly the first 5 to 10 minutes flushed out. There's still a lot of questions on the table.
Currently, I'm focusing on the first boss encounter in the level, which is the Hecaton 10 you see in the background here. This is the first fight, and it's going to be actually simpler compared to the rest of the boss fight. So this is like a warm-up for everyone. Try to put all the pieces together. Every single God of War game has like amazing opening. It's always like set the benchmark pretty much for the game. Everyone involved here, we all feel a lot of pressure to deliver. We're still in the early stage, we will see how everything pans out, everyone will try their best, try to make sure that we will meet that quality bar.
From our standpoint, it still doesn't feel like a Titan.
We need to make sure that we're selling the movements and the scale of it, and that's some of the things that we're trying to fix in art and animation and cameras right now.
These are the basic poses. There weren't really a lot to do because he's so wide and thick. This one, I'm trying to show a little bit more of the arm so that it feels like a whole hand.
Even if he just does a super or something like that, he pulls out and then goes back in to sell that. I mean, I like the ones where he puts his hand down.
I like this type of pose more, like when he angled, like he put one of his arms forward. I think it looked more dynamic. Because there's so many moving pieces in the opening level, constant communication between art design and programming is required, because we have a level where you would tilt any directions, and we have a wall crumbling, and the boss character just, destroy this piece of the structure at the same time.
It's going to be that feel like you'd want it to almost.
You have this gigantic arm, and then it comes and it's moving around, and then it props up to an arena. And if it just does this, then it's not gonna. To me, it's like I really want to see constantly this, Yeah.
So what you see here is actually the very first shot of the game. We want to put a twist on this opening. For any fans of God of War, they probably will be surprised by this opening because Kratos is looking in the puddle, and then we change from a seemingly third-person perspective into first-person perspective. He get caught by the Fury, and he just wake up and he look at his situation. By the way, this is not the real Fury. This is just a stand-in. Kratos finally breaks free and got his hand on the Fury, but the game just started for the Fury, so he's having fun. This is the chase where Kratos is going after the Fury. Immediately, we highlight all the new mechanic in the game. Environment is being destroyed. That's the beginning. That's the very beginning.
Typically, with animation, we're used to animating bipeds and quadrupeds, things that you're more used to seeing in our real world, whereas Hecaton is bizarrely different. He's an actual hand. He's got no legs, so he moves a lot different. This is a rough pass of Hecaton transforming. When you first encounter him, he has this closed hand pose, and he goes from that to where he rips the outer layer of his skin from the fingers down, and these fingers become two huge hands that attack you. The rig made it complicated to really make it convincing that these things were ripping. So I have to go through another pass to make it seem like it's really painful for him.
This time we're trying a very different approach in terms of storytelling with God of War. We are going to do different flashback sequence, so that's why we try to set it up at the beginning. You feel like personal, there's a mystery. Why Kratos is here, he's after something. This is a storyboard of the very first shot of the game. So Kratos is waking up, looking in the puddle. This is the surprise moment for the player because in first-person perspective. And then Kratos waking up in this prison-like structure with his hand chained, and physical fury appear. We just try to get a sense of what elements is involved in each scene. This is more like a guideline, how we're going to approach this sequence. So Kratos is like struggle to get out, and Megara comes in. Now, this is a new type of minigame we're trying. Hopefully it'll be more intuitive to the player. This is a semi-arced level. This is actually on Hecaton's giant arm. So Kratos crashed through this wall and find another prisoner, and Hecaton appear in the background and kill him. Right now the hand is poking through the ceiling because we don't have destruction yet. So we're going to put in those pieces later. When you stun Hecaton, he will crash into the arena, and at that point you can actually pull down this building and drop it on Hecaton and crush him. You're basically closing a section of the arena. As the fights progress, the arena is actually getting smaller and smaller, so it's more intense. So this is the beginning of like figuring out exactly how we want to implement the destruction of the level with the artists.
There's a lot of things the camera has to communicate, gameplay first. If you stop and leave Kratos in some place at some time, you need to be able to find out where is he going next. You need to be able to pull back to show the player enough when he's fighting, what he knows is safe, what areas aren't safe. Kind of added on top of that, then we're able to kind of show a little more of the environment, to communicate kind of the story, the setting that you're in, and kind of immerse them a bit more in what's going on. Here we have the arted Hecaton level.
And these green areas are the camera zones where Kratos is located, and then each one of these brighter green spots are the actual cameras that are activated. So we've set up zones based on where the location is, so you can kind of see as Kratos runs by, the camera will switch to follow the Hecaton monster. So here he's doing a special move, so we activate another camera. So here now he's boxing us in, the camera's pulled back a little further. Now he's attacking, so we pull back even further to that to keep his claws in view. This way the player knows they don't lose sight of what matters. So there are, I think, 3 different sets just in this location, and those sets have 2 cameras each. So you see these big green and red balls are camera targets. The large volume gives it a larger radius for the target to move in, and so that means it's actually a softer target. The smaller ones are much stronger targets, and so when they move, it's a bit more of a one-to-one motion. Some of the changes are subtle, but a lot of it's to make sure we can keep Kratos in frame and then provide different moments.
When you kick through this door, we're going to have a cinematic to show this hand transform into the monster. But we don't have that right now. But we have the boss fight. You are going to fight the Hecaton head. What he is going to do is to pick up this platform in his mouth, and then you're going to battle enemies AI on this platform, while Hecaton head is chomping away on the platform like a piece of pizza. Eventually, the head will break this piece off and swallow it. So the arena will get smaller and smaller. The player will be able to cause him to drop the platform. And now the platform is vertical. Once you're there, you're going to break this one too, which causes him to toss it away. And then we have another Hecaton come out. So now you're fighting both of them. So the idea is you will turn Hecaton into a giant rival and use him to attack the face. So that's what we're working on.
We're getting there, we're getting there.
I'm Todd Pappy, Game Director at God of War Ascension. What you're about to see is a making of video that we've been shooting over about 2+ years. It gives you a good idea of the inception of an idea all the way through to the final product. Keep in mind that this is a work in progress. Enjoy.
The 3 Furies are divided into the physical fury, the mental fury, and the soul fury. The physical fury represents physicality and is dangerous by virtue of her physical involvement with Hecaton Kyries and just straight up bashing out of Kratos. When I first started on the Furies, we didn't really have them broken down into the 3, so I was just painting Furies. This was kind of an attempt at the sexy monster. I went for sparse clothing, but dangerous looking. A lot of that has to do with the pose and kind of the facial expression. Here she gets even more like kind of wicked. They didn't like any of these. They did like this kind of insect angel wing thing. So that's why I brought this image up. As a response to that, I started building her up. I kept some of the sexy elements, like showing some flesh, but also started giving her, you know, crazy deformations, weird muscles, big rib cage, pigeon-breasted, crazy claws, scary helmet, frowny face. These are all symbols of evil. And the more I played with her, the more she started to take on some aspects of the Impusa, but also she was doing her own thing. And I think in my head, my own personal mythology for her, this is the final design. I thought maybe it'd be kind of cool if like all of the really weird characters that we've had in the past maybe were birthed from the 3 Furies. So like the Sirens maybe came from Tisiphone, who is the mental fury, and maybe the Impusa come from her. Here you can see, we're going for a little close-up. I hope you haven't eaten recently. This is the Suriname toad reference that I pulled. Look it up, Suriname toad, which is this toad. It has live births where it has eggs laid into its back skin, and then the little froglets, once they're of age, burst out of their mother's back and just leave this waffle-style, you know, English muffin holes on her back, and you'll never eat English muffins again, by the way, but it's disgusting. It's so gross. You have crazy
cool.
bustier style armor, but every time you look, you're going to be punished. She's my answer back for Aphrodite on the last game.
She's basically the one that can go toe-to-toe with Kratos. She has like big appendages similar to Ares. She's a pretty tough chick. One of the first things we do is we create a rough gray mesh. Once that's approved, we can then jump back to the character and kind of really get into the anatomy. Like I'm at that point now where I'm starting to rough out some more interesting shapes and a little bit of anatomy into the crab-like appendages. Starting to think about how does the back work, as well as how the drapery works and just how everything interacts as a whole. One thing with her face that we've really been focusing on is in the concept, Izzy had really drawn her face where there's a good wide set area between the eyes. And I think that's kind of that fine line we were talking about between human and creature. So I really tried to capture that space between the eyes and have it to where it's believable anatomy, but it is also kind of an exaggeration of what normally would be there.
Kratos will have his first face-to-face moment with Megara at the beginning. There will be a torture mini-game that you have to win to break out from the prison. So this is like the first mini-game. It's a new style mini-game we're trying to do, so it's more intuitive. You just move the character like you are in the game.
The biggest challenge has just been interpreting the design. With any character, there's going to be things that look great in concept, but then when we get them into 3D, how do they read in 3D? What does it look like? So that's one thing we're dealing with now. We just kind of have to roll with the punches and get it to the level it needs to be. Her face originally was extremely battle-scarred. It was almost too creature-like, and we wanted to kind of bring back a little more feminine quality. I just took the sculpt and I brought it into Photoshop and I just painted some different ideas. And we ended up going for something a little bit more subtle, and this is what we ended up narrowing it down to. So you can see that she's been into battle. Her eye is scarred, but it's not like a zombie eye. Her lip still has a scar on it, but it's not exposing any teeth. It's not a disability. We still get the story and the sense of history in her. In the actual final model, this is what you see. And then it goes down into the neck, and then we even carried some of those scars, you know, down into the legs. These are where the parasites live. You know, I tried to sculpt some that were like semi-closed, like a parasite was still living in them, and then some of them that were open. It'll take something that, you know, normally most men find very attractive and really kind of push the gross factor to it and really show that that's another area of attack. This is the final high-res asset. I tried to use brushes that would give a nice organic feeling, but then when you came to kind of crab, spider-like appendages, you know, I wanted to have that material difference. This area, I wanted to feel a little bit more hardened, but then in between we have kind of that soft little bit. This is the character, which he'll look like in game. I like building monsters and brutes and stuff like that, so when I heard I had to do a female model, I was kind of bummed out in one sense, but then when I saw the concept, I was like, oh, it's this weird creature, super strong chick. It was a little bit more interesting to me, and this character definitely fit that bill, so that was nice.
Not to worry. I am quite skilled at teaching respect.
I'm Todd Pappy, game director, God of War Ascension. What you're about to see is a making of video that we've been shooting over about 2+ years. It gives you a good idea of the inception of an idea all the way through to the final product. Keep in mind that this is a work in progress. Enjoy. With the Manicore, the whole idea behind it was almost like the Chimera, where we had different stages to the fight. It's a completely new experience. How you doing, Iz?
I've been changing them a bit.
The wrist is still really thick, and for some reason that irks me. I don't know why. I can't really put my finger on it, but I think the biggest thing for me was just getting that kind of taper feel where it goes from the elbow to the wrist.
We'll go back and forth with a lot of iterations trying to get something that feels cool. It has to work for animation. It has to feel fun and interesting. We're going for, you know, the ultimate look. So the thing has to be huge, you know, cool.
Like that feels more natural to me, I guess.
In the case of the Manticore, we come in and take a look at the early concept stages and just kind of give our little input to make sure that by the time it gets to modeling and then and it gets rigged, everything is well thought out.
So, but you don't mind a longer tail?
No, that's fine.
All
I think
Sweet.
actually it'll help when the character's flying also.
So you just need like a final 3/4 now?
Yeah.
God of War 3 is kind of a learning curve project, I think, for a lot of the guys, and now everybody's just kind of up to speed and running. So it's the characters will be a lot better in this game, actually. The Manticore is essentially part scorpion, which is his tail. He has the body of a lion, the arms of a man, the wings of a bat, and the jaw of a shark, which will unhinge and completely open like a shark jaw. It opens very far so that he can spit these large fireballs. In the concept, I really like this big oval that you got from a shark. So that's kind of what I did. So these bottom teeth are more shark-like. These upper teeth, same thing, very shark-like. These will actually be redone. We don't like them. Then he also has the chest of a human. You can see this is all human, and it leads down into these kind of very scorpion-like plates. A lot of this is based on scorpion. These big hard plates, and these other plates with flesh in between, and these inset plates with flesh in between it. So all of this will move very fluidly, but it's still a plate. The hardest part were the wings. The rest of it's all fairly straightforward. The wings essentially fold up and he walks on these two knuckles. We went back and forth quite a bit on the wings. Wings are very difficult. We actually went to Sony ImageWorks last game, trying to ask them how they did wings, if there's any ideas they had. And they just create two versions, a folded version and an open version. It's very hard to do. The big discrepancy was in how this works. They transition off fingers, are they a hinge? We needed them to be able to fold up so the character could swipe. And this is what we came up with. There were always spikes here, but there was also a mane. There wasn't hair on him anywhere else. And it really didn't make any sense to me that he would have a mane of hair and no hair anywhere else. So I kind of pitched Todd on the idea of just spikes. He tentatively agreed. He hasn't cut it so far, so far so good. All of the textures for this character were painted in ZBrush. Where I paint little cracks, there's actually normal map detail of those cracks. So you're really supporting the sculpt and driving home and accentuating the detail that you have in the sculpt. That all works together just to look nicer. It looks more natural.
Manticore's arms are human arms, but they're also a bat wings. So I was working with an animator who had an idea of how he wants things to work. And my job was to actually make rig work in the way he wanted it to work. And the solution was I want to have one control that basically makes it look good. So this is a prototype of the wing rig. So here's the main control, and it sort of allows you to move the whole character around. This would be sort of half the body of the Manticore here, and the wing starts with this human-like arm. We could make lots of controls to animate this wing, but animator really wanted to have a single control that would just do exactly what they want. And this control became this guy, this large control in the middle of the wing. So I'll show you a little bit what it can do. So this control can basically mimic the billowing of the wing itself. This animation itself, just be able to pull this up and down and move it around any way you want, drives secondary controls that allow animators to do more precise animations. So that was the really big breakthrough for us, to create something that allows animators animate without having to break it or struggle with many FK controls. And so we're planning to use this rig for pretty much every creature we have that uses bat-like wings. So hopefully going forward, this rig will work for many years to come.
When I first saw the concept art, I thought, holy I thought I was going to have a lot of trouble making this guy move. Izzy's probably one of the best draftsmen I've ever seen, and so he had all these beautiful drawings. And of course we went with the most challenging design, as we do. Probably the most complicated rig I've seen here outside of the Poseidon fight. The Manticore, he's got all of these tail joints that move around. He's also got this stretchy little pelvis here. We can move up and down. On top of that, he's got all of these wing controls right here. And you can see there's these diamond shapes. What they do is kind of control where this thing flexes, but for extra control, we've also got these other joints that come in here, and they can actually rotate just to finesse it a little bit. So all of those things included, it's probably 3 or 4 times as complex as Kratos' rig. It's such a strange design, really having a hard time wrapping my head around it. It's not until we actually start to break the guy down and hurt him that I started to enjoy animating him. He's got 2 states in the beginning. He can fly around and avoid you. And he's also got a projectile that he can do where he will ignite the ground on fire. He's got this big sweeping attack where he flies across the entire environment and ignites everything. Once he's on the ground, folds up those wings. We had to do a lot of trickery with the wings just to get them to work. You can see the size of these right now is actually a lot smaller than when they're in the air because we're actually scaling the joints down. When we had the wings bigger, they were way out here, so you couldn't quite read what was going on. It's still hard. It's so unique and it's so foreign. People tend to recognize things through silhouette, and this just is completely alienating. When he's on the ground, he's got another tail strike. Tail looks good. He's got another move where he goes to the air and claps his wings. That knocks the player back. And now he's in this hurt state where he's sort of limping around. He's got a lot of the same things. He's got a projectile attack. He's got a tail attack. He's also got this wing attack. This thing is just ridiculous because see how far it moves. It's like twice the length of his body. But it reads all right, and I think it's kind of interesting. I also like how he hops back. It's probably one of my favorite moves. One of the best and worst parts about working on the God of War series is that our creature designs are nuts. As an animator, you're constantly challenged to kind of find ways to make this stuff look good. When you get to make Kratos kill the stuff that you're not that into, it's equally as fun.
With the mini boss, we really want to make it really formidable for the player when he plays through it. So we do this in a number of ways. We stage out the character, and we want to sell that sense of progression. So the Manticore is the same way, where he has 2 different stages that you have to get through. The first is that he can be both in the air as well as in the ground. He has a second stage where you actually rip off his wing, and now he's injured. Now he's more desperate, and that's what leads to the climax of the fight. In addition, with our mini bosses, one of the tricks that we use is to kind of tease a character over a period of time. So with the Manticore, you see him throughout a number of stages in Delphi where he'll make appearances, and then when you actually get to the fight, it's just that much bigger because you've seen this guy, he's been bothering you the whole time, and now you've actually put a personality to the character. He's a huge creature, he's flying. We haven't had a character this large before in the air, and also that he'll transfer to the ground, just like he did there. In comparison to Kratos, he's a really large character, so he takes up a lot of the space in the arena. And when he does hit Kratos, you can see that Kratos really moves back far, so that, he displaces Kratos, basically. One new thing that Manticore has is that we're doing away with prompts that are on the screen for the CS moves. So this makes it more cinematic. There's no buttons that appear on the screen that cover up any of the action that's going on. This is one of those buttonless mini games. So you can see the giant tells that he does on the attacks. That's very clear for the player to read so that they can evade out of the way and then retaliate with their blades. So there's no buttons on the screen, nothing that tells the player what they're doing. What we've seen when we playtest this is the players, naturally see these things and are paying attention to what the character is doing and then responding. Now, this is one of our other buttonless mini games.
We came up with the concept that his weakest side was his belly and his neck. Basically, to kill this character, Kratos had to somehow get in there. He's basically chained up by Kratos' chain here. He's struggling to get out. At this point, the only weapon that he really has at his disposal is his tail. So he attacks with his tail, Kratos dodges, and he comes back and kicks Manticore in the face to sort of show who the boss is here. He's dominating at this point, so we really wanted to show that Manticore can't really do anything to Kratos while he is on top of his belly.
And the player can evade out of the way of the tail. There's giant tells on the tail that strikes, so the player knows when to evade out of the way and then counterattack with his blades.
So close, it's so far.
I'm Todd Pappy, game director, God of War Ascension. What you're about to see is a making of video that we've been shooting over about 2+ years. It gives you a good idea of the inception of an idea.
This game
all the
definitely
way
had
through
a
to the final product.
few new
Keep in
monster
mind that
missions
this is
that
a
were
work in
pretty
progress.
cool.
Enjoy.
The Juggernauts are about to show in this one, and the Manticore
Traditionally,
especially.
Minotaur is half man, half
You know,
bull,
if it's
and
the
that's
offspring of it
what we've gone
having so
with
much
in
health
the
makes zero
past.
fucking
This time
sense.
around, we're messing with the Minotaur a little bit.
The sky is open in terms of what we can do with him.
My task for this Minotaur is to bring something different to the table, to the point where we're even talking about taking it outside of being a bull. So it's going to be some kind of new hybrid amalgamation.
We're trying to find all the aggressive mammals that we can and trying to bring them together with a human and see what we get. With the Minotaur, it might not even be a Minotaur. The basic structure is that it's got to have the reverse need. It's got to be a somewhat imposing creature that's going to be somewhat of a difficult fight and more of a bully where he always tries to back you into a corner. Whether we go with rhino skin or something like that to add that extra layer and make it feel different.
One of the things that we wanted to do this time around was suggest that the creatures had a little bit more intelligence, and we figured the best way to do that would be by including some clothing, some accessories that weren't just armor. So there's going to be a lot more robes and things like that this time around. This is your sort of standard Minotaur approach, you know, the bull head with the horns and all that sort of thing. Here, I'm kind of taking it elsewhere. So this is a bear tar thing. Here's kind of a robot guy. When Todd and Chris saw this particular creature, there was mostly laughter. Absurdity is an interesting aspect to character design, particularly for this game, because as much as people think that everything that we're doing is totally there is a level of absurdity to every character that we make. That's kind of what makes them memorable, is that they're kind of a little bit silly, but with fangs. They liked the idea of the bear, and they wanted to see other animals explored with that. So here, there's kind of a crocodile, sort of a rhino mixed with a bullfrog or something. Here's a rhino. They liked this guy, but they decided that he looked a little too Disney. Here's some boars, standard sort of boar with a big head approach. Here's a little bit more of a realistic look on the head. And this one appears to be the favorite right now, is this big elephant creature. I mean, these are early sketches, but I'm doing my best to follow the proportions of the Minotaur from God of War 3 so that they would fit the rig and the animations would fit.
We looked at rhinos, we looked at all sorts of different kind of characters, but the elephant really stuck. We felt that it would be a great replacement for the Minotaur.
After they decided that they wanted to go with the elephant, I started showing them some elephant variations, and this is when we were bringing back in the necessity for the rig that it was originally designed for. There was a lot of back and forth with this, trying to find the right proportions so that it would fit. Ultimately, this guy got scrapped altogether. The only thing I kept from him was his belt. Ultimately, this is the final Elephantar for the game, keeping the old Minotaur rig legs, but working with the new elephant upper body.
Once that stuck, it was, all right, well, let's get him in game and start getting this grayscale and see how he fits on the Minotaur rig. So we got him in game, and then we decided, you know, he's just not big enough. We got to scale him up now.
You know, he's an elephant. Like, he should look really big on screen. So we scaled him up like 20%, and I think he looks much better. And really with this guy, I'm just really trying to get kind of the energy across that he has. You know, he's got a lot of attitude, and it's a really interesting looking character, you know? It's just like this crazy, like rocky elephant dude. So you can see I'm just kind of laying in all the big shapes so I can get a better idea of how much detail I need to put in areas around his body and where I want to draw the eye. Let's say I went in and I just sculpted the body, did all the detailing, like all this armor, like all the armor plating and the skin texture and everything. If I don't go in there at some point and really start getting in the rest of his outfit, I could end up, you know, over detailing and overworking a bunch of areas that no one's ever gonna see, and also kind of messing up the rhythms of his forms. It's really trying to lay in and capture his attitude and his character. If I zoom in really far, you see like this is just a mess right now. It's all pixelated and everything. But what's gonna happen is I'm gonna just keep subdividing up and going in there and just refining the detail and just like carving these shapes away. I just think of like this screaming, charging elephant, you know? He's just pissed off and he's gonna kick your ass. And that's kind of, you know, that's just kind of what I go with. Just a really, you know, like try and go with aggressive shapes and just, you know, make sure that comes across.
Elephantar came with a lot of challenges compared to previous character Minotaur. It has a lot of elements in it, like long tusk and the trunk. So when I animate, I just don't bother the trunk and do whatever I need to do, and then the trunk comes later. I like the grinder attack. He just has this loop of going all crazy It's like he won't stop at anything, just go for it. Used to be shorter length, but then it got longer. It's 80 frame. Used to be like 50 frame of attack, but it needed time to get it looks really heavy. You have to see how heavy the club is. It's pretty much all about the timing.
We wanted a really tough creature, like an unstoppable juggernaut of sorts. In the previous God of Wars, the Minotaur kind of served that role. In this one, we'd step it up because, you know, this is the new God of War. For his character itself, we wanted someone that wasn't entirely savage, entirely out of control. We wanted someone that obviously had a lot of weight, had a lot of power, but was still borderline in control versus pure aggression. This is our test level that we experiment all our creatures in. He's swinging the giant club around. It's reminiscent of his tusks. It shows like he's from a long line of other stronger elephants. He's gonna try to grab me, and then this is one of our instances where you're in an interactive sequence, but you're not having button prompts on the screen, and then here's the kill. So you've got him pinned down, and like he's totally trying to grab you, so you hit all your buttons, try to take him out as quick as you can, and then this is the satisfying moment when you stab. Just tear it open, and it just pops right out. God of War is a really gruesome, brutal game, so we always try to push the limits. In order to get the head splitting open, our tech artist actually made a seam right here. It splits open, and to actually animate a separate object that we replaced the top of the skull with the zipper tech. It popped open, and this is the brain. So this is where we hide one object. We reveal this one with the actual brain, and this when it pops out. And you know, obviously this is before all the effects and all their departments get their hands on it.
Bruno came to me about this kill. He just told me make it as, you know, as brutal as possible. So yeah, I was like, oh wow, this is gonna be cool. This is the beginning part of finishing off the elephant. Kratos yanks him to a position where he wants to slice his head open. So that's the first thing. The pose is very important. Like you can still be threatened by the elephant. He's pinned down, and then at this point you can like, you know, slash his head.
Right there.
I added a little bit of the emotion on the eyebrow. I have this eye blinking a lot, blinking, and all of a sudden just froze. But I don't know. It kind of got lost with all the bloods going on. At this point, like Kratos just look at his prize, like his finish move, and toss him away like a garbage.
I think Elefantar turned out great. I think the model looks absolutely fantastic.
Alrighty, one more.
I'm Todd Pappy, Game Director, God of War Ascension. What you're about to see is a making of video that we've been shooting over about 2+ years. It gives you a good idea of the inception of an idea all the way through to the final product. Keep in mind that this is a work in progress. Enjoy.
Today we're at House of Moves in Culver City doing what we've dubbed VOMO cap, VO and motion capture at the same time.
This is the first time we've done the VO mocap. In the past, we've done just mocap and voice recording completely separate.
I love mocap. I love me some mocap. Because the outfits are just hot.
The actors being together and acting out the scene, having that relationship with each other adds a lot to the scene.
It's more about being able to live whatever in that moment is through movement and voice. You know, this is a job where we get to come to work and play every day. The things that a friend of mine said were things that used to put him in detention.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back.
You walk into this room, quiet room, it's nighttime, and there's a little girl sleeping.
We're actually going to be doing an emotional scene with Kratos. This is one of the rarest cases, so it's going to be awesome.
I have missed you, child.
And one thing I didn't mention before you say the line and you're looking at her, only time we've ever seen you smile. Smile at your daughter.
In this one, we're trying to show off a little bit more of his humanity, seeing him smile, seeing him kiss his kid, seeing him hug his wife. After this, he really starts turning into supreme.
I would actually just go all that you lost would be yours once again.
He's a little bit different guy in this one, I think, which I'm happy about. It's kind of the last moment of him having any kind of humanity in him.
She has grown. Been away far too long.
It's hard because we haven't really seen this side of Kratos, so we want to be careful not to lose his character. I think in that sense, this scene might possibly be the hardest one.
In the game, Kratos ends up in this prison of Hecaton, and the Furies, who have been kind of infecting his mind and causing these insanity moments, are trying a little bit different tactic and trying to give him what he wants.
So he's in this blissful illusion where he meets his wife and kid.
He's back to olive skinned Kratos and goes and sees his kid's sleeping, goes in, gives her a kiss, sees the wife, has somewhat of an intimate encounter with her. There's something that Alecto does that pulls him out of that. Something doesn't feel right.
And then he finally figures out that it's not real, and he's more interested in knowing what the truth is.
This is the master bed. This is where he makes love to his wife. Yeah. The moment she does this, you no longer go for her anymore. But everything else looked awesome. When you're working on a computer, everything's so planned. You have to know exactly what you want. You know, a lot of times actors bring in something of their own that just, makes that scene that much better.
T-pose.
One of the best parts is being able to work with other actors. It's like theater. And we get to play an imaginary world because nothing's really there.
I try to push them interacting with each other more. I want to try to get that emotion through TC's acting as well as his voice.
I will never return to Lord Ares. Never!
TC, I love the hold.
Yeah, with the hand.
Very good.
The hard part is over, Spartan.
Jennifer stood out as she had the right voice for it. It was sultry. And out of all the Furies, that's what we were looking for Alecto, and being able to do the wife as well and sell those intimate encounters better.
I'm crazy, first of all, and so it's not really acting, it's just I can picture all of these things happening around, and I can picture myself looking this way. So that's my only advantage, I think, is that I'm certifiably insane.
Scene 7, take 1. Roll sound.
Sound speed.
T-pose. Roll video. Roll mocap.
Okay, speed.
Might be wrong, but I think that might be the guy who voiced Joel in The Last of Us.
This is not the manner to discuss it.
When we started looking for Orcos, we did multiple sessions and found Troy. For me, he had the proper delivery and also regalness to his voice. Troy fit the bill.
Furies are near. They cannot know I speak with you. I will draw them away. The truth waits for you in Delphi, Kratos. Seek the Oracle. The story is so good, and the writing is brilliant, and the characters are so established that we'd have to try really hard to fail.
And what path is that?
Do not let illusion deceive you.
Then this is what you shall have.
Of all the minds in question, mine is not the one to worry about.
Use these items to still your mind, Kratos. Freedom from your bond to the god of war himself.
Troy, TC, and Jen did a great job. We got the voice direction the way I wanted it, and so I'm very happy with it. It's been a really fun experience. I got to learn a lot.
It's fantastic to be able to work with the other actor. This is like heaven.
It's cool. I mean, I really would like to do more of this.
I'm excited to get it back to the studio and see it all come together.
We got a lot of great performance from our actors, and now it's time to implement it.
When we receive the raw motion capture data, oftentimes the characters aren't quite aligned properly, like say one person has to shake another person's hand, the hands might be a little bit off. There's no face, they just have deadpan puppet face, and we have to add in all the eye blinks and darts, all the mouth talking and emotion and eyebrows and everything. We do get pretty good fidelity with just the basic body, but every once in a while, maybe the actor didn't give us quite the performance we wanted, maybe Kratos didn't look manly enough, or maybe the wife didn't look wifey enough, so we go in and finesse the acting as well. So this is the video reference that we get back from the motion capture suit. That's Kratos' actor and the wife. I'll use this to get a sense of, well, where was her hand on his shoulder? What are the fingers doing? So when we get the motion capture data back, it's mapped onto these joints, which is kind of the skeleton of the character. Each joint is getting data about translation or rotation based on what the actor was doing at the time. This is Kratos and the wife doing their thing. On top of the rig, we have the characters that get mapped onto these joints. From there, we have these controls that we can put on. These controls are what I can actually use and manipulate the animation like this. Move him around, adjust his arms or whatever. So I will often take this data, copy it into my scene with the environment, and then start adjusting his hands or his torso to make it look a little better. Maybe that hand isn't quite, they're not looking quite real, like they're actually holding hands, so I may end up moving her arm or his arm to make it look a little more realistic. So this scene has quite a lot of dialogue in it, but when we get the motion capture data back, it's not there. There's no audio, and you can see the mouths aren't moving, there's no facial animation happening. So what I will do, I'll bring it into my scene. So within my scene,
all that you have
I've got the audio running.
It is not real.
We have these sliders where you can control his eyes, his eyebrows, or his mouth, and make these phonemes, which are basically the mouth shapes for when he's talking. So if I move this slider up and down, you can see his mouth is opening. And this is all done by hand. It's not part of the motion capture data.
It is not real.
Here we have video reference just on TC's face that we can study. I can really see the details of every blink and every mouth shape. It's very difficult to get subtle nuances when you're animating by hand without doing a lot of effort and work. For these emotional scenes, we wanted to get that subtlety, and in a game production, it's just, we don't have time to spend getting all those nuances by hand. So the motion capture really helps save us some time.
Your mind is troubled, but your skills are still without equal.
Do you have business with me? I have been away far too long.
You can see her in the morning.
There we go. That's all the bonus content for Ascension. I'm not gonna go and try to do multiplayer again, so it's kind of a bummer that I had to spend $15 just for all I showed, but I guess that's life sometimes. So there we go, that is the epilogue for Chapter 1 as Ascension. Whenever I get on next, which will probably be Thursday, I'll start the next game in chronological order, which is Chains of Olympus, which is a PSP release. So that'll be fun. So yeah, anybody who watched, thanks for watching. If anybody checks it out on YouTube, thanks for checking it out. Like and subscribe for some more, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you very much.